Chapter 51. Xiaoan took a deep breath and said, "Next, please allow me to ask a question. If these 27 people survive, how upset will Quncan Group be?" El Yunan was slightly taken aback. Xiaoan said, "It is true that the Quncan Group has the means to cause these 27 people to die socially, but as long as the 27 people are not substantively killed, they will always be a moderate threat. Perhaps for the colossus of the Quncan Group, no matter how great the threat of these 27 people is, it will not be able to shake its foundation. However, the disease of ringworm and scabies needs to be treated with decoction, and no normal person likes to take medicine. What's more, the ringworm and scabies of a behemoth have completely different meanings to individuals. For example, to Ning Tao, the life and death of these 27 people may also determine his life and death. His performance in DUI 4399 is enough. Oops, the dignitaries who died here are obviously his responsibility, and the loss of Xianhuang blood will also be counted on his head. If there is another one that makes things worse, he will definitely die." El Yunan sneered, "What does the life and death of that Hut bastard care about me?" Xiaoan said, "It's really not about our business, but it's about the Quncan Group's business. If Ning Tao is also fleeing with the 27 people, it's not just ringworm, right?" El Yunan was a little confused when he heard it. Why did Ning Tao flee with those 27 people? Because staying here is a dead end, at least there is a chance to survive if you escape. What's the meaning? Shan explained, for Ning Tao, the current situation is actually like walking a tightrope. If he doesn't pay attention, he will be smashed to pieces. And the only thing he can rely on at this time is the identity of the branch chief, which can provide him with enough support. Political resources to absolve himself. So, what if we seal this avenue? He has no choice but to die. El Yunan frowned upon hearing this. How to seal it? Xiaoan said, "Here we need to think about this issue from another angle. For Ning Tao, the only choice if he wants to get rid of his guilt is to find someone to blame. For example, the enemy is too despicable, for example Blue Dragon is too cunning, or for example his subordinates are too incompetent. In fact, only the last one has practical significance. He must choose some subordinates to help him take responsibility, so that he can escape. But if you are a subordinate, you will be honest, do you really take the pot?" Xiaoan asked himself and answered, "No one is really willing to take the blame for the boss, but Ning Tao is the director of the branch, with a louder voice than his subordinates, and more resources than his subordinates. Under coercion and temptation, how easy is it not to take the blame? Unless someone can help them at this time." Speaking of this, let alone El Yunan, even Anping and Su Bo, who had already voted against, couldn't help but join in the conversation. "How do you want to help?" Anping asked. Xiaoan said, "Collect all the evidence against Ning Tao at the scene, including the evidence of his dereliction of duty and even crimes here, and hand it over to the most rebellious person here, and tell him the result of resistance and the result of not resisting. Of course, this is just my preliminary idea, and it may not be applicable. After all, I don't know Quncan security, so I need your help." Anping and Su Bo looked at each other, but didn't speak for now. Xiaoan then said to El Yunan, "Just imagine, if we can instigate the branch chief Ning Tao, what kind of chaos will happen inside Quncan security and even Quncan Group? How many people will stay up all night, how many people are smashed to pieces in the storm? And that picture, don't you want to see it with your own eyes?" El Yunan finally smiled. "Actually, I hate the honest gentleman like you who talks endlessly about the big truth, and I know that this matter is 99% impossible to do, but this time I like the truth you said, and I will give you 200 points. Then, she looked at Anping, "Sorry Captain, this time I vote for it." Anping said helplessly, "Okay, everyone, let's get moving. Shan's idea is good, but the details need to be polished and filled. Our Red Apricot team has to do things after taking the money. Shan donated 3 million generously. You can't trap him." Shan was taken aback. 3 million. Anping smiled, "How much do you think the dividends for this mission are?" Shu Wang's 30% savings, plus the ill-gotten gains that Ning Tao and others have deposited here, add up to at least 25 million Quncan coins. After deducting the cost of action and the channel cost of selling stolen goods, the dividends that fall on everyone are about 2.5 million. Although you are a newcomer, there are many immature things in your actions, but you have played a key role every time, and the final dividend will not be less than 300,000 yuan. 1 million. If you return to the base safely and receive dividends, you can pay off all the debts directly, and you can ask Boss Li for the information you want for the excess part. Shan's heart skipped a beat. Information. Even Xiao Zhuang can see what's on your mind, so don't pretend. Although we Silver Knights don't ask about each other's past, it doesn't mean we don't pay attention to each other's present. Now you have made it clear that you are worried about someone or something, and these matters, Boss Li is the most efficient in handling these matters. Basically, as long as it is something that happens in the Dry Galaxy, give him a little time to investigate clearly, although it is expensive, but there are almost no false occurrences. Speaking of this, Ping asked with a smile, so, do you want to go back on your word now? Shan froze for a moment, then shook his head. Of course, there was nothing to regret, even if Li Yu was so powerful that he could directly arrange for the master and apprentice to meet again, he would not be able to sacrifice 27 innocent lives as the price. Otherwise, what face will I have to meet master? Anping said, it's good not to regret it, because it's too late to regret it, and the Hongxing team will not accept refunds for orders. While speaking, the team leader also took action, walking towards Ning Tao who was shivering in the distance with a little nostalgia and a little cynicism. Let's talk. But Su Bo and El Yunnan moved faster. One went to the monitoring room to obtain information and collect evidence, while the other left the underground plaza with his favorite gun and returned to the ground. In his heart, Shan once again expressed his amazement at the tacit understanding of the division of labor of the Red Apricot team, and then found his own task without any instructions. To appease the 27 survivors. In the following rescue operation, the people who had to be rescued also actively cooperated, and in the Red Apricot squad, only Shan had enough affinity and patience to mobilize these civilians. When he came to the door of the room where the survivors gathered, Shan put on a gentle smile, opened the metal door, and stepped in. Panic almost hit the face, and what came into view were 27 terrified grey faces, so that the warm-toned decoration in the room that was originally intended for VIPs to rest and enjoy themselves was overshadowed. Shan took a deep breath, maintained the smile on his face, and said straight to the point, I will arrange a cargo ship for you later, please have someone with piloting skills drive it to follow our spaceship closely, and I will take everyone out here. After a moment of silence, the breathing in the room became rapid. Xiao En saw more clearly the light of hope in many people's eyes. However, at this moment, someone said hoarsely, why should we believe you? We have experienced this kind of trick of deliberately giving people hope and then making people despair. As soon as the voice fell, the hope that had just been lit in the crowd was suddenly extinguished. Shan turned his gaze, and saw a middle-aged man with a hunchback figure and bruises all over his body in the corner of the room. He was wrapped in a heavy blanket with mottled stains, but it was difficult to cover up the stench of rotting flesh and blood emanating from his body. The pain and suffering this man endured was palpable, so Shan understood his mistrust. But before Xiao En spoke to appease, someone in the crowd stood up and retorted, they are the Red Apricot squad of Bian, and they are not in the same group as Ning Tao. Immediately, someone echoed, that's right, the group of demons that Ning Tao summoned have been killed by Red Apricot squad. They are not in the same group. The middle-aged man with a hoarse voice said, so what if we are not in the same group? They dare to kill even dignitaries, but will they be merciful to us people instead? What good will it do them to save us? Are we rich or rich? Power? Why should they do things that are not beneficial? The person who retorted was speechless. Shan didn't know how to answer this question. Because he was right to ask, saving these innocent survivors would not do the team any good. In fact, the members of the team didn't intend to save people at all. It was their own perseverance that allowed the rescue operation to start. And the reason why I want to save people has nothing to do with the benefits. In fact, Shan paid them a dividend of 3 million yuan, and he also has to bear the risks brought about by the rescue operation. It's just that Shan doesn't do things for benefits, he cares more about right and wrong than good or bad. It's just that even if this persistence is said, who will believe it? So Xiao En can only say in another direction, staying here is only a dead end. If you run away with us, at least you have a chance to survive. But I heard the rotten middle-aged man let out a muffled laughter, I have heard this kind of words more than once. Run, if you can run 100 meters, you will be saved, but if you don't run, you will be killed now. Die, in the end, running desperately just makes those demons laugh more happily, who can really survive? These words instantly aroused fear like resonance. In the room, the survivors let out various distorted groans, as if those who tormented them had returned to their side again. Shan was a little helpless, for a moment he really had the urge to show his identity by showing his lightsaber. If the call is made in the name of the Jedi, the persuasion should be much higher, right? Unfortunately, this can only be used as a last resort. The Jedi apprentice changed his rhetoric again. At least you are still alive now, and those demons are dead. You don't need to trust me, but you should trust basic reason and logic. Even if it is a gamble, the benefits of entering the bet it's better than just sitting there waiting to die. The middle-aged man laughed when he heard the words, rationality and logic? Are you talking about logic to us at this time? As soon as the words fell, the door behind Xiao En swung open. El Yunan walked in full of hostility and blood, and as the strong smell of blood flooded into the room, the peaceful atmosphere that Xiao En had managed to maintain suddenly disappeared. Help! Do not kill me! Forgive me! The cries of help and mercy were endless, and the 27 survivors shrank behind the furniture and in the shadows of the corners like frightened herbivores. Xiao En turned his head helplessly, looked at El Yunan who was full of murderous intent and looked like a hungry animal, and said, "Leave it to me." El Yunan sneered, "I'll leave it to you to reason with them slowly, logically? Do you really think you're good at reasoning?" As he said that, El Yunan suddenly pulled out a short gun from his waist, aimed at the ceiling and fired randomly. The energy beam collided with the ceiling and produced a brilliant spark, which immediately caused ghosts to cry and howl in the room. "Shut up, I'll kill anyone who dares to make a sound." With El Yunan's angry shout, the wailing of the survivors came to an abrupt end. El Yunan pointed his shotgun at the trembling survivors who dared not make a sound, and said sharply, "In 10 minutes, the cargo ship will stop on the ground, and everyone will get on board. No one is allowed to stay here. One person will stay, and everyone else will be buried with him." Someone trembled, but the next moment, an energy beam flew past his ear. "I didn't allow you to speak. I don't need to persuade you to agree, let alone answer your questions. I just need all of you to board the boat honestly. Listen clearly, it's everyone." After finishing speaking, El Yunan retracted the blaster, turned around and left, leaving a series of sneers before going out. "Hehe, I really hope that some of you are hard-headed and want to stay. I am worried that killing people is not enough." Chapter 52. As the door of the room was closed again, the air finally cooled down, and people looked around in a daze, completely at a loss. Sean didn't know how to comfort them, so he shrugged and explained his rescue plan. "The cargo ship will follow us to the deserted area of Suan, where you will live with a new identity." A short man was very surprised when he heard the words. He stood up and asked, "What do you mean by a new identity?" Xiao En sighed, "It is impossible to use your current identities anymore. The Kunkan group will not allow those of you who have witnessed the truth to live. But we are also victims, and we did nothing wrong. Xiao En also deeply regrets this. Everything is the fault of Kunkan group, but it is meaningless to pursue right and wrong now, the important thing is how to survive. But, I still have family. Then for their sake, you should work harder to live on. One day in the future, there may be a chance to meet again. And if you die here, there will be no future. Someday in the future, which day is that?" Xiao En said, "At least we have to wait until the limelight passes, and the Kunkan group's attention is no longer focused on you. How long will it take for the limelight to pass? 3 years or 5 years? During this period, we can't see our family members, and we can't show up in public? And even if the so-called limelight is over, we will still be blacklisted, right? Once discovered, they will still be arrested, persecuted and even assassinated, right?" Sean said, "Yes, but at least you're alive. But that might as well let us die now." Sean asked back, "Really? Are you going to give up hope, your family, and your life here for a temporary escape?" The person who was asked back by Sean was suddenly speechless. After a while, he said hysterically, "Are you really saving people? Does this count as saving people? Does letting us live like Bumi maggots in the gutter count as saving people? That's just your self-satisfaction, right? If you really want to save someone, save it thoroughly." Sean fell silent. But that hysterical person, as if grasping at a straw, desperately continued to follow this topic. "I said, you should have a way to do better, right? This is the military base of Kunkan security, and it is also protected by the pirate group Qinglong, but you have a way to come in and kidnap Ning Tao, so with your strength, you can do better, right? It's just that you don't want to do it. You don't want to save people at all, you just do it for self-satisfaction, so once you feel that you have saved people, you're done, and you don't care about the follow-up matters. If so, I would rather stay here than leave. Just as Sean was about to speak, the door behind him opened again. Yunnan walked in with a smirk. Aren't you leaving? That's great. I'm worried that if you really all board the boat, won't we have to distract you to protect you? It's much more convenient now, all of you, everyone will die here. As she spoke, the woman unceremoniously raised her gun. Etc. At this moment, a young girl in Cheongsam stood up and stood in front of the hysterical man. The Cheongsam girl faced Yunnan directly, her voice was trembling like her body, but she said stubbornly, "None of us want to stay here, everyone will be on board. Please take us to the deserted area of Suan. Please, please." Someone next to him said in surprise, "But..." The Cheongsam girl turned her head and said loudly to everyone, "I don't want to die. I don't want to, no matter what. It doesn't matter if I live like a maggot, I want to live. And if any of you really don't want to live, please come to Suan later, kill yourself." As soon as this remark came out, someone immediately echoed it. A young man said, "That's right, I don't care what other people think, I don't want to die here, although it's really hard not being able to see my family, as long as I'm alive, there is hope." Another middle-aged woman said, "My family members have long since died, and my original identity is not a glamorous one. It is a good thing to be able to start all over again. If any of you want to commit suicide, you can do it yourself. But don't drag me down, I don't want to die." Soon, more and more people stood up from the crowd. Even if they still can't trust the Hongsing team, most people know how to choose when they are presented with the two options of life and death on the spot. There are only a very small number of people who are stubborn, but the opinions of these people are not worth mentioning. The rancid middle-aged man wrapped in a dirty blanket, and the hysterical short man, have been firmly controlled by the other survivors at this time. Even if they committed suicide by biting their tongues on the spot, the corpses would be dragged onto the cargo ship and headed to Suan with the others. Most people want to live after all. Under the guidance of the desire to survive, the 27 survivors quickly boarded the cargo ship of Kyunkan Security. As long as the order to lift off is given, they will drive the cargo ship to follow the Red Apricot, along the carefully calculated route. Channel to Suan to start a new life. Sean had planned to stay on the cargo ship to stabilize the small group of survivors and assist them in their escape journey. However, this proposal was directly rejected by Yunnan. Compared with this cargo ship, the Red Apricot needs your strength more. Next, we are going to escape instead of traveling, and there is no extra strength to waste on burdens. Your 3 million dividends can only buy our strength, not our strength to our lives. Sean could only nod silently. Although Yunnan's words were not pleasant, they were the out-and-out truth. The next escape route cannot be ignored, and one must be very careful. And once something goes wrong with the Red Apricot, the cargo ships behind have no power to protect themselves. So instead of sending troops to the cargo ship, it is better to strengthen the strength of the Red Apricot as much as possible. And when Xiaoen was about to follow Yunnan off the boat, someone grabbed his hand suddenly. Looking back, Sean saw the trembling of the Cheongsam girl's body and heard the firmness in her words. "Thank you for saving us. I believe in you." When Xiaoen followed Yunnan back to the basement of the small building, he saw Captain and Ping lying on a cushion with a dejected face, pretending to be bored. "Su Bo is missing." Xiaoen wondered, "What are you waiting for, should we go?" Anping suddenly became angry, and cursed, "What's the rush? Is it because I want to stay here? It's not because your kid has a Madonna attack, and you insist on going to save people." Sean asked, "What's going on?" Anping sighed, "That kid Ning Tao is tougher than I thought, and he is unwilling to defect. Without his cooperation, at most we would escape on the Red Apricot, and it is impossible to bring a whole ship of survivors." I said, "Now it's still too late to give up those living dead, I can refund you half of the reward." While speaking, the door of the meeting room next to him was swung open, and Uncle Su came out with a gloomy face. "It's really tough, he won't let go even if he crushes a few fingers." Yunnan scolded, "What's the use of pinching your fingers? Have you ever played house? I think other places are dirty, and you know that I like to eat finger food." Uncle Su argued, and he seems to be really determined not to betray the Kyunkan group. He wants to get him. It may be difficult to get support. But there is also good news. Anping cheered up, "What good news?" "Our team's rule is to refund at most half of the deposit, so now that you give up those burdens, you can earn at least 1.5 million. Yunan kicked Su Bo away with one kick, and then prepared to go out to do the persuasion work in person. Wait. Su Bo quickly grabbed Yunan, it's not impossible, but I need to discuss it with you. Anping said, what way? Su Bo said, generally speaking, when you encounter this kind of person who won't listen to any persuasion, the best way is to ask Boss Li to come forward. His eloquent kung fu is the real deal. You also know that the price is real. Anping sighed, our self-sustaining team needs to ask Boss Li for help, and the price is not cheap. Su Bo said, it's better than refunding half of the deposit, right? That's 1.5 million Quncan coins. And this is the first time the rookie Xiaoan has set out on a mission with us, so it's too embarrassing to give up halfway like this. Yunan sneered, when did you learn how to lose face? Su Bo asked back, then you are willing to admit defeat like this? Yunan was silent, and scratched his hair after a while, you guys can do whatever you want. But I have agreed in advance that my income should not be less than 500,000. Sure. Su Bo immediately handed a communicator to Anping, Captain, it's up to you next. Chapter 53. Anping sighed, took the communicator, and quickly connected to the communication channel of Silver Knights by relying on the repeater on DUI 4399. Captain, it's me, Anping. I encountered a little trouble during the mission, and I need your help. Ah, of course I know that there is a fee for the service. Well, it goes like this. And when Anping briefly described the progress of the mission, Li Yu's laughter came from the communicator. You guys are actually stuck in such a trivial matter. Are you trying to laugh me to death? Anping said, it means, boss, you can solve it easily with your help. Of course, but it's easy, and the fee will not be discounted. Boss, make an offer. After all, it's my family, so I'll set a basic price, 2 million. Pfft. Anping sprayed out on the spot, boss, isn't your basic price a bit outrageous? Li Yu said, if you think it's too expensive, you can come by yourself. Anping tried to counter the price, boss, if you ask such a price, we basically won't make any money. It's just that you basically don't make money, but you can still make money in the end, don't you? Li Yu asked back. Anping was silent for a while, okay, the price is 2 million. Both Su Bo and Yunan were very surprised, hey, you agree to this offer? Anping said helplessly, we have an income of 3 million. At worst, you and Yunan will share the remaining 1 million equally, and I will work for free. Yunan reminded, wait, you didn't count Zhuang's income, did you? Anping coughed and said, I will treat Zhuang to dinner when I go back. Su Bo was startled and said, send Zhuang with just one meal. Captain, you are too scumbag. What kind of scum is not a scum? Zhuang is different from you, he doesn't have such a strong desire for material things. While speaking, Anping walked into the meeting room where Ning Tao was, pinching the communicator in embarrassment. Ning Tao, the sub-bureau chief of Quncan security, has fallen into hysteria that is almost insane. Seeing the meeting room door open and Anping walk in, Ning Tao let out a frenzied laugh and then cursed. Haha, you want me to betray the Quncan group? Dream your mother's dream. You lifeless wastes will sooner or later be turned into carbon specimens by the Quncan group to show the public. Anping said indifferently, yes, then we will hang side by side in the capital square as specimen brothers, okay, Boss Li, I will leave the rest to you. While talking, Anping came to Ning Tao and threw the communicator in his hand on the ground. Ning Tao's smile faded instantly. Boss Li? Are you Li Yu? BNS Li Yu. In the communicator, Li Yu's voice seemed unhurried, it's me, do you want to sign? Ning Tao said in a deep voice, people say that the leader of Bian is a smart man, so you should know the consequences of offending the Quncan group in the Dry Galaxy. Li Yu said, I've become a prisoner of war. Don't you feel weak when you say such cruel words? Well, now is the paid talk time. I don't want to waste my lines, so let's get straight to the point. I'm not interested in chatting with you. Li Yu ignored the other party's resistance and said, actually, you have long wanted to defect, right? Ning Tao's plump body froze instantly. Li Yu said, the position of the director of the sub-bureau looks very good, but it is not easy to sit up. He has to wipe the ass of the general bureau, and he has to make false promises with dangerous terrorists like Qing Long. It's mediocre, but you have to deceive people in every possible way to make money in private. You are obviously half of the group's top management, but life seems to be more difficult than when you were at the bottom. And in the foreseeable future, not only will you have no way to continue to rise, you will even be bad. Turn down this tricky errand. After a pause, Li Yu smiled and said, in comparison, those born noble chaebol can enjoy endless glory and wealth as a matter of course, and they don't even need to put in any effort. Of course, this kind of thing, when you joined the Security Bureau, you had already seen it clearly, and you had long accepted that you were born as a commoner and did not deserve a noble fate. However, when those chaebols shouted at you time and time again, and asked you again and again outrageous demands, even asking you to use the power of pirates to hunt real people in this military base, I think no matter how reasonable a person is, he will feel unwilling. Ning Tao spoke subconsciously, but found that his voice was extremely hoarse. I don't know what nonsense you are talking about. Li Yu said, you don't know, but Kong Zhang, the Hut, knows that as the biggest smuggling leader in the Gan Galaxy, it is easy to help one or two high-ranking officials of the Quncan group escape to other star regions of the Republic. Of course, with the cunning of the Hut, it is also easy to resell the information of these high-ranking officials to others. In short, you have already contacted him privately and made an appointment to have the opportunity to abscond with money. How much assets have you transferred out through Kong Zhang over the years? 500,000 credit points. When Kong Zhang's name appeared, Ning Tao's whole person's aura was unstoppable. The Hut man who gave himself a local name was his most secret hole card. And when the figure of 500,000 credits was revealed, Ning Tao went limp like melted fat. What on earth do you want? Li Yu smiled and said, mutual benefit and win-win, I will help you abscond, and you help me save people. Ning Tao couldn't believe it, save those untouchables? What good will it do you? Li Yu said, it's not good for me, but it's good for my subordinates, so I, the head of the writer, can only help him to be self-willed. In short, you can do this, and the benefits are obvious. With me, with your cooperation, no one in the Gan Galaxy can stop you from fleeing. You can cooperate with Kong Zhang boldly without worrying about being tricked by that Hut. But 500,000 credits is not enough for you to survive outside, right? After all, what you want is the life of a comfortable rich man, not a wandering life hiding in Tibet. You need to buy a mansion on a prosperous planet, and you need a housekeeper supporting the scene with servants. You need to hire elite bodyguards to prevent the Quncan group from retaliation, and the 500,000 credits transferred out are far from enough. You originally planned to use the next few years to transfer your tens of millions of property in the Qiang Galaxy, gradually sell and transfer, but it is obviously too late now. Here I have a suggestion that can help you quickly raise the target amount. Ning Tao was silent for a while, but still couldn't help asking, what should I do? Li Yu said, contact the family members of your group of cronies and friends, and tell them that everyone has been kidnapped by Qing Long, and they want a ransom, the more the better. But they have been killed by your people long ago. As much as you can deceive, even if only 1/10 of the people are deceived, is it enough to scrape together your pension? Ning Tao was taken aback when he heard the words, but immediately fell into deep thought, and asked a question after a while. I am sure to deceive some people, and they can at least spend tens of millions of credit coins in half a day, but the problem is that even if they pay obediently, how can I collect money? Li Yu said, I can do the collection for you, and the handling fee is only 20 points. Ning Tao said angrily, are you here to collect it? Do you think I'm an idiot? If you are not an idiot, you should know that this is the best choice. Right now only we Silver Knights can help you do this, and our reputation can provide sufficient guarantee. No matter who the customer is slag, as long as we undertake the next task, we will fulfill the promise to the end. You should be very clear about this. Ning Tao was still angry, but pursed his lips and fell into deep thought again. Li Yu said again, think about it carefully, this is beneficial to you and has no disadvantages. What is it that you are walking on thin ice in the position of chief of the sub-bureau? Isn't it possible that one day you will earn enough money to fly far away? Now one less struggle, the 20-year opportunity is in front of you, why are you still hesitating? Of course, I admit that this kind of behavior of defrauding the upper echelon of the entire galaxy will definitely bring you danger. But is there no risk for you to continue to be the director of this branch? Don't forget all the cronies who killed you died in your jurisdiction, whether you cheated or not, they will not let you go easily. These words played a decisive role. After a while, Ning Tao gritted his teeth and said, "Okay, let's do this." At the same time, Anping and others have long been dumbfounded. Uncle Su sighed, "Boss Li really deserves to be an idol, how can he still talk like this? Not only did he solve our urgent needs, but he also created millions of extra income. I am really convinced." El Yunnan sneered and said, "I'm afraid the cost of this information will cost hundreds of thousands, and the value of his Queen Intelligence Agent Chen Suangan is not cheap at all." Uncle Su said again, "Chen Suangan, that mysterious person who only accepts information in exchange for information? It's amazing to be able to contact him. Let me just say, why does Boss Li suddenly know everything about Ning Tao like the back of his hand?" Anping clapped his hands and interrupted the chat, "Okay, since Boss Li has solved the problem, let's officially enter the next link and prepare to escape." Chapter 54. The Red Apricot Squad's escape journey is destined to be intense and exciting. Shortly after Hong Xing and the cargo spacecraft carrying 27 survivors lifted off, DUI 4399 fell into serious civil strife. The rebels instigated by El Yunnan and Su Bo clashed fiercely with the dead soldiers who were still loyal to Ning Tao. Although the number of the latter was far less than that of the former, it firmly occupied the area where the communication relay was located, seriously slowing down the pace of the rebels occupying the entire base. This made it impossible to transmit the latest information in DUI 4399, and Ning Tao was able to escape safely after cheating. The only problem is Anping. This is different from what you said. In the cockpit of the Red Apricot, Ning Tao's roar spread through the communicator, almost deafening. "Li, you promised to protect me. You Silver Knights can't just keep your word." Anping rubbed his ears, connected to the communicator and said, "What's wrong with you now?" Ning Tao became even more angry, "How dare you let me and these untouchables?" Before the words fell, there was a loud scolding sound from the communicator, and Ning Tao's roar stopped abruptly. Anping gloated and said, "I don't think it's wise to insult passengers who are in the same boat as me. We do promise to protect your safety, but if you insist on committing suicide, we can only mourn for you." After a while, Ning Tao's voice sounded again, but it was obviously weak and timid. "If you really want to protect my safety, you should let me aboard your boat. It's a big mistake. Our ship is limited to only 6 people, and it is now fully loaded. How high is the risk of overloaded sailing, so don't let me popularize it. And the Hong Xing is now the target of public criticism, Qing Long is probably already lay out the net, are you sure you want to share will and woe with us? I can find a way to arrange a box for you in the cargo hold." "You." Ning Tao gritted his teeth, but had nothing to say. Anping's rhetoric is obviously perfunctory and molesting, but it is also reasonable and undeniable. Now DUI 4399 is in chaos, and the news is still being suppressed forcibly. The Quncan Security Bureau has no knowledge of everything that happened on the asteroid. And with their usual efficiency, when Ning Tao's defection was really confirmed, Ning Tao might have already soaked in the hot spring on the luxury smuggling ship of Hut smuggler Kong Zhang. The only problem is Qing Long. With the insidiousness and cunning of Dragon Head, it is impossible to be indifferent to the escape of the Hong Xing team, and it is impossible to sit back and watch the 27 survivors escape. The 27 people not only witnessed the security of Quncan, the darkness has witnessed Qing Long's wanton perversion of the law. If the matter is exposed, Quncan security will of course have a way to pick him out, but Qing Long will most likely be pushed out to take the blame. "Qing Long, of course I can't bear such a big burden, so I have to go all out to ensure that all witnesses die." And once Qing Long took action, the escape route would be full of dangers. The group of pirates were in charge of DUI 4399's outer defense line, but it was only after the Hong Xing team found a hidden channel that they broke through the encirclement. There are still a large number of fighters lurk around the asteroid. The Red Xing squad wanted to escape when Blue Dragon was completely alarmed, they could only rely on the Hong Xing to fight their way out. And Ning Tao certainly doesn't want to walk on the road of blood with others. "I know a secret channel," Ning Tao said, "I discovered it by accident. Only a few people in the base know about it, and Qing Long is even more firmly hidden by me." Anping smiled and said, "It seems that you have never trusted Qing Long. Ning Tao just snorted at this idiotic question, and continued, "The specific coordinates are." Anping wrote it down in detail, and then said to El Yunnan, who was in charge of driving the Hong Xing, "Do you hear clearly? Be careful to avoid the area around the coordinates later." Ning Tao was stunned for a moment, and asked, You don't believe me? Anping laughed at this idiotic question. Ning Tao argued, I have the same interests as you now, and I can't survive if you die. But we don't want to die with you. Anping interrupted, secret waterway? Under the layers of Qinglong, how can you find any hidden waterway? Believe it or not, there are at least 20 fighters around that coordinate waiting for us to throw ourselves into the trap. Ning Tao was stunned for a moment, but he had nothing to say, because the possibility is really not small. Then what should we do? Slay the blood. Anping wrote lightly, thanks to you helping us rule out a wrong answer, so as long as our luck is not too bad, the number of Qinglong fighters that can come to intercept in time will not be too many. Red Xinhao is fully capable of protecting you and escaping together. Of course, you also need to contribute a little bit. Ning Tao said vigilantly, me? How do you want to trick me? I heard that as the director of the Quncan Security Bureau, your driving skills are superb, enough to compete with the ace pilot of the branch. After the war, the safety of the cargo ship will be entrusted to you. Ning Tao almost vomited blood on the spot. Superb, outnumbered. This kind of propaganda does exist. Quncan Securities Watch Weekly once did an exclusive interview, blowing Ning Tao like a god, but people with brains would believe a man as fat as the hut can the guy cram himself into the cramped cockpit of a fighter jet? That's just a soft article that Ning Tao spent money to find someone to write. The work pressure of the branch chief is so great, why not pay someone to write a happy letter? However, no matter how Ning Tao cursed in his heart, Anping had cut off the communication early and ignored it. Captain, are you really going to hand over the cargo ship to that hut bastard? Su Bo asked suspiciously. Anping said, otherwise, we can only hand it over to 5 ordinary people who have never been on the battlefield. I know Ning Tao is unreliable, but he is from the Security Bureau after all. At least he is more reliable than ordinary people on the battlefield. El Yunan said, does it need to be so troublesome? Can't we just blow up all the fighters blocking the way? Anping said, okay, I will entrust you with the important task of saving the world. The small talk between the team members was interrupted by the newcomer's alarm in the middle. Sean stood in front of the radar, immediately read out a set of abnormal indices, and then issued an early warning with his extraordinary mental arithmetic ability. Signals of fighter planes are found ahead. No less than 10 planes. Damn, so fast. Anping cursed, and the sleepy and blurred look faded from his face in an instant. It seems that this time I was unlucky, and I ran into a den of thieves. Everyone cheer up. While Anping was speaking, everyone on the Hongxing had already taken their positions. El Yunan was sitting in the main driver's seat, with both hands on the control console, and in a blink of an eye, Hongxing entered the emergency maneuver mode. The whole spaceship trembled slightly with the roar of the engine, and the water cup placed on the armrest by El Yunan also shook. Splashes of water splashed out. Anping was in charge of assisted piloting and fire control. When he gave the order, the 6 laser cannons and the main and auxiliary guidance systems on the spaceship were all activated. Sean kept a close eye on the radar from the observation position, and completed the enemy aircraft's positioning calculation with amazing efficiency before the auxiliary computer, and sent the data to the 2 pilots. Zhuang Yuanying entered the machine repair room ahead of time, exposing the complicated pipelines to her eyes. She fixed herself on the maintenance position with a belt, and held a heavy machine repair gun tightly in her hand, constantly coping with the incident of electric arcs being shot due to the rough operation of her teammates. Faulty line. The Red Apricot is a highly specialized spaceship. The specialization is not only reflected in the extraordinary maneuverability, but also in the safety and stability of the spaceship. Once it enters the stress state, the spaceship will show unimaginable ultra-high performance, but it must rely on the real-time maintenance by the mechanic like tearing down the east to make up for the west, otherwise it will overheat and explode in less than 3 minutes. As the team doctor, Su Bo packed the first aid kit early and sat in the reserve position of the cockpit. Chapter 55. Fighting broke out after a few minutes. The Red Apricot squad was indeed unlucky. The 10 fighter jets that came oncoming were the elite of Qinglong. Each of them came from the heavy industry group under Quncan Security. With their pitch-black paintwork, long and narrow bodies, and broad wings, they can fly surprisingly fast in battle, and possess powerful firepower commensurate with their speed. Of course, the most important thing is that all the fighter pilots are the ace pilots of Qinglong. These elite fighters had no intention of going head-to-head with the Hongxing, and quickly dispersed after the battle started to avoid the sharpness of the Hongxing. After all, the Hongxing was much larger than them, and the larger means thicker shields and more powerful firepower. However, just as the fighter planes of Blue Dragon had just dispersed their formation, two blazing bright lights burst out from the tail of the red apricot, propelling the spaceship to shuttle rapidly like lightning, and broke into the formation of Blue Dragon in no time. The heavy LSQ-3 laser cannons on both sides of the wings shed a shower of light, smashing a black fighter that was caught off guard into broken fireballs. The outbreak of the red apricot caused the pilots of Qinglong to fall into a great shock, and the scattered fighters seemed at a loss for a while. The ultimate maneuvering speed of the Hongxing is obviously much faster than these black fighters, and the pirates were pierced by the Hongxing's encirclement net as soon as they met, which means that it is already difficult for them to intercept the Hongxing. Fortunately, someone had sharp eyes and saw the signal of another ship on the radar. "There's a cargo ship behind. Dragon had said that we must stop the cargo ship no matter what." The pirates immediately shifted their targets, let go of the red apricot, and prepared to set fire to the cargo ship. At this moment, Hongxing, which had passed through the encirclement, suddenly changed direction, and the engine at the tail deflected slightly outward, pushing Hongxing to complete a U-turn at a very small angle, and charged again at the scattered fighters. This time the charge was unsuccessful. The pirates had already adapted to the speed of the red apricot. Seeing that the two huge engines began to emit light, they immediately drove their fighters to spread out further and avoided the red apricot with flexible tactical maneuvers. Gunfire on the apricot. After the second round of charge, Hongxing became passive instead. As a mobile specialized spaceship, the red apricot is not good at frontal combat power, and being deeply trapped in the enemy's line is tantamount to suicide. The pirates realized that the Hongxing could not fit the cargo ship, so they immediately made adjustments, sending out a few fighter planes to chase the cargo ship with all their strength, and the rest hung behind the Hongxing, waiting for an opportunity. The situation of the Hongxing became more and more embarrassing. If it was fighting alone, even if the Hongxing could not fight against 10 fighters, it would be enough to protect itself. After all, we can't really count on Ning Tao to have the courage to fight 9 elite fighters back and forth in a heavy armed cargo ship while recovering from a serious finger injury, right? The embarrassing situation of the red apricot was constantly captured and magnified by the pirates. When the twin engines at the rear of the red apricot shone brightly for the third time, those fighter planes hovering near the cargo ship immediately turned around and surrounded the red apricot. This time, the pirates had adapted to the speed of the red apricot's explosion, and the encirclement was sparse and tight. They also saw the red apricot's focus on rescuing the cargo ship, calculated the location in advance, and completed a precise fire focus. Laser cannons, concussion missiles, and proton missiles bombarded the long and narrow spaceship like a storm, submerging it in the grand flames in an instant. However, the pirates didn't even have the time to feel subconsciously happy. They saw in the flames, the tail engine nozzle of the red apricot suddenly turned, emitting 2 oblique flames, pushing the spaceship to complete an emergency maneuver at an almost weird angle. Most of the firepower passed by the red apricot, the flames dissipated, and the long and narrow spaceship rushed out unscathed. The deflector shield covering the surface of the spaceship only flickered slightly, and the flickering gloom ripples were like delicate waves. Embellishment. And the 6 heavy-duty laser cannons burst out a burst of light rain again, driving the nearby pirate spaceships to flee in embarrassment. The black fighters had to disperse again, and besieged Hongxing with a more cautious attitude. This shabby-looking mobile specialized spaceship was not as fragile as they had expected. However, it was only a temporary struggle. The 9 fighters quickly adjusted their formation, sometimes scattered and sometimes gathered, supporting and cooperating with each other, and always placed the Hongxing in the middle of the encirclement. Once the Hongxing is ready to break through, the black fighters will shift their targets to the cargo ship, forcing the Hongxing to give up its maneuverability and become a living target for the pirates. The battle lasted only a short while, and even though the red apricot managed to remain unscathed by the maneuvering force of the vector engine, the battle situation became more and more passive. The fighter planes around were getting closer and closer, and their firepower was getting stronger and stronger. Now I suddenly feel that this rescue operation is still too hasty. We are so naive to think that we can take 27 civilians through the net. On the red apricot, Uncle Su wailed and fixed his body firmly on the seat with belts. However, under the violent turbulence, Uncle Su still looked extremely embarrassed, and his forehead bumped against the dashboard above from time to time, so that his speech became intermittent. "Captain, let Xiao Zhuang refit this wrecked ship when we go back. Even if it is in emergency maneuver mode, it should ensure basic comfort. I'm going to be hit to death." Su Bo's sincere call did not get any response. Because no one on the Red Apricot cared about him at all, the plasma and concussion missiles that brushed against the spaceship had already attracted everyone's attention. And the ripples of the heavy laser bombardment on the shield are even more shocking. The threat from Blue Dragon is getting stronger and stronger. Enping sat in the co-pilot's seat, tapped the armrest a few times with his fingers, and then ordered decisively, Lu Nan, enter the assisted pilot mode, leave the spaceship to me, and you are in charge of intercepting the firepower. Lu Nan, who was in the driver's seat, switched the driving mode without any hesitation, and handed over all the driving authority of the Hongxing to Enping. He was only responsible for detailed assistance and focused on the fire control system. As soon as Lu Nan took over the fire control system of the Red Apricot, the 6LS.Q3 laser cannons burst out a burst of wonderful light rain, sweeping away the approaching missile torpedoes. The Hongxing's maneuvering pressure was immediately relieved, but 9 fighters were still surrounding the Hongxing, and more missiles and beams were ready to go. Captain, you can't go on like this. Uncle Su tried to give advice while applying herbal ointment on his forehead. It's still too late to abandon the cargo ship. Sean moved his ears. Even he, who strongly advocated rescue and presided over the entire rescue operation, has to admit that the rescue operation may fail at this time, and it is time to consider giving up. If Enping decides to give up here, Sean can't even find him. Objection. The situation is very clear. If Hongxing wants to escape by itself, it is more than capable, but if it wants to save people, there is a high probability that it will also pay for itself. In order to save people, the Hongxing team has put in a lot of effort. No one is qualified to accuse them of ineffective rescue, let alone ask them to risk their lives. After all, saving people is to maximize benefits, not moral self-satisfaction. However, just when Xiao En subconsciously considered giving up, he heard Enping sneer like Lu Nan, "Ha, give up at this time, how can we veterans pretend to be aggressive in front of newcomers? And Su Bo, you are also stunned. It's over, the opponent is not a regular army, but a group of greedy pirates." Su Bo was taken aback when he heard the words, "Then what's the matter?" Enping shook his head, "You are really dizzy, you can't think of such a simple trap." Lu Nan, help me. Lu Nan said, "Stop talking nonsense, let's start." Enping immediately turned his head and shouted at Zhuang Yuanying, "Xiao Zhuang, get ready for the escape mode." Zhuang Yuanying directly hit the cabin door with a machine gun, making a deafening bang in response. Enping nodded, pressed an inconspicuous button on the console, and quickly pushed the driver's joystick back to its original position. In an instant, the jolting of the Red Apricot stopped. Chapter 56. The Red Apricot, a spaceship known for its maneuverability, was surrounded by pirates and suddenly extinguished the light of its engine, stopped its charging momentum, and floated in the deep space like a rock, and then was mercilessly attacked by all directions. The artillery fire drowned. This time, no miracle happened. The spaceship received all the oncoming artillery fire as ordered. The deflector shield flickered a few times before being completely extinguished. The outer armor was shattered under the bombardment of the concussion missile and the energy beam, showing signs of scorching and melting. The long and narrow body twisted slightly, and the left wing of the spaceship was even separated from the main body in the explosion. The narrow, sharp, and ghostly Hongxing horn extinguished all light in an instant. At this moment, even the pirates were dumbfounded. "Boss, what's the matter?" One of the closest pirates couldn't help asking, "Is this suicide?" A teammate responded, "I'm afraid it's an engine failure. That kind of lunatic-like maneuver can't last long. It's not uncommon for them to start continuously and the engine will explode. Why do you care so much? Add a proton torpedo to make them die completely." "Stop!" The little leader of the pirates immediately stopped his men's aggressive advances in the communicator. "Have you forgotten Xianming? And that is the Red Apricot. Legend has it that the Bian organization is second only to the Bian the modified spaceship, the core components are all priceless. Do you want to destroy all of this?" The subordinates couldn't help but startled when they heard the words, "But..." The little boss asked, "Are you even afraid of a piece of unresisting space junk?" Inside Qinglong, there is nothing more shameful than timidity, so when questioned by the boss, the communication channel of the fighter team fell silent. Number 1 and Number 3 are going to continue chasing the cargo ship. Don't let it escape. Others come and share the spoils with me. Xianming is to be handed in, but the other parts belong to us. Before the other teams arrive, we must at least eat the most essential part into our own stomachs. While giving the order, the little boss drove the fighter plane close to the red apricot, and used magnets to collect the many black armor fragments that fell off the spaceship, and put them into the cargo hold with limited capacity in the belly of the aircraft. The rest of the pirates followed without hesitation, like carrion-hungry beasts, eagerly feasting on the corpse of their prey. The size of the red apricot is much larger than that of a single fighter, so the most valuable large parts can only be disassembled after the large troops arrive. But those shattered fragments are also valuable. Judging from the eyes of these skilled pirates, the armor covering the outer layer of the red apricot is the famous black iron, which is almost the most suitable for making spaceship armor in the galaxy. Rare metals, the protection performance is several times stronger than ordinary alloys, of course, the price is hundreds of times. In fact, the pirates suspected that if it wasn't for this layer of black iron armor, the red apricot would have been shot into a fireball on the spot when its engine failed and it was set on fire. Now, these rare metals will become pirates' spoils. The pirates didn't question their victory at all, because the red apricot in front of them was already a tattered corpse from any angle. All the light of the spaceship had been extinguished, it was covered with scorched marks and potholes everywhere, and the outer armor had been damaged. The pipeline exposed by blowing the big gun could not even flicker a short-circuited arc. However, when the pirates were feasting, someone suddenly discovered abnormal information on the radar. Wait, is there anyone alive on the red apricot? This warning was not heeded. Aren't you dazzled? The spaceship is broken like this, how can there be any survivors inside? It's better to have someone alive. A living silver prisoner of war is probably worth more than the spaceship itself. The channel was noisy, filled with the ecstasy of the pirates' victory. Even the little leader of the pirates has been blinded by greed. He no longer has careful calculations in his mind, only continuous conjectures. After this battle, he can completely use the collected black iron and upgraded the defense of his car, and his great achievement in eliminating the Hong Sing team gave him the opportunity to compete for the next leader. And amidst the ecstasy, the spaceship that was as silent as a corpse suddenly revealed its ferocity. 6 heavy-duty laser cannons fired without warning, and the light beams pierced through the thin shields of the 3 fighters simultaneously, turning them into blazing fireballs. And just when the surviving pirates were caught off guard and subconsciously wanted to launch their fighter planes away, a batch of concussion missiles caught up in time and smashed the other 3 fighter planes to pieces. After only 1 round of firepower, only the little leader of the pirates was left alive. However, a lone fighter plane, facing the resurrected Hong Sing, is like a dead leaf before a storm. I surrender. The pitch-black fighter plane was blasted to pieces by the laser cannon while sending out the surrender signal. Call. In the pitch-black cockpit of the red apricot, El Yunnan let out a long breath, pushed the operating lever away, and fell back on the seat. It is not easy for El Yunnan to shoot down 6 dexterous small fighters in a blink of an eye even if he hits a fixed target that is almost immobile. What's more, when the spacecraft enters the shelling mode, the performance of the entire ship drops sharply, and all crew members under the condition of strong shock and shock. When aiming through the severely damaged fire control system, El Yunnan only felt like she had drunk the spice for 2, and everything in her sight was weirdly distorted. In the end, she almost completed the shooting almost by intuition. Fortunately, the result did not shame her. The next moment, El Yunnan's seat back was patted hard by Anping. Nice job. Snort. Okay, let's restart the spaceship, Uncle Su, check to see if everyone is injured, and then let's recover the fallen parts together. Sean, do you cooperate? Sean. While talking, Anping discovered that the newcomer who was supposed to be guarding by the radar had disappeared. Anping was surprised to turn on the searchlight on the mechanical arm, bringing dazzling light to the dark cockpit. However, under the light, there was no sign of Sean in the cockpit. On the other side, in the dark machine repair room, Sean cautiously approached the girl who collapsed into a ball in the corner. Zhuang Yuanying, are you okay? While talking, Xiaoen couldn't help wrinkling his nose. The smell of blood in front is getting stronger and stronger, I'm afraid Zhuang Yuanying will be fine. He came following the smell of blood. After the spaceship was hit, everyone in the cockpit was basically safe, but the smell of blood came from outside the cockpit. Xiaoen realized that Zhuang Yuanying, who was working as a machine repairer, had almost suffered the impact without any precautions, so he ran to rescue people immediately. Sean was very glad that he followed Uncle Su's medical kit when he came. Although the herbs in it looked weird and he didn't dare to use them indiscriminately, there was at least a can of Bacta spray that could be used for emergencies. I'm fine. The girl's voice came softly, but in the darkness, the tone seemed somewhat weak. Sean quickly turned on the searchlight, but heard an exclamation at the same time. Under the light, the slender girl stretched out her hand in vain, trying to block the light, but it was too late. Sean had already seen her face clearly. Under the searchlight, Zhuang Yuanying's face was pale, and the wound on his forehead looked even more grievous. But what really catches the attention are the two horns protruding from the girl's forehead on both sides. It is milky white, about 10 centimeters long, extending obliquely towards the side and rear, with smooth and round edges. It seems to be just an exquisite headgear, perfectly matching the girl's calm and delicate face. This was the first time Xiaoan saw Zhuang Yuanying take off his soft hat. In the base, Zhuang Yuanying never took off the soft hat on his head no matter whether he was eating or sleeping. Unexpectedly, it was to hide such a secret. Zhuang Yuanying also realized that her secret was exposed, sighed lightly, gave up resistance, and lowered her hands. At this time, the people in the cockpit also rushed over. Anping saw Xiaoan standing in front of the door with a searchlight in his hands and a medical kit slung across his shoulders, and he let out a long sigh. Su Bo followed behind him and suggested, "Captain, it's still too late to give him an amnesia fist." Anping said, "There's no need for that, after all, it's my family, some things will let him know sooner or later." Su Bo shrugged, "You are the captain, you have the final say." While speaking, Uncle Su crossed Anping, came to Xiaoan's side, and snatched the medical kit from his shoulder. "Okay, don't poke here to get in the way. This box of babies, what else do you know besides Bacta spray? If you only use spray, what is the difference between you and Lu Nan? If you want to take my class, learn for another 10 years. Su Bo walked up to Zhuang Yuanying with nagging, and skillfully used spray and herbs to stop the bleeding and heal the girl. In addition to healing, Uncle Su carefully collected all the blood that dripped nearby, and put them into a test tube. Sean frowned. In his mind, the strange totem flashed again, as if the ubiquitous force was giving him precious enlightenment, but the picture was fleeting, making Sean unable to figure it out. Anping patted Sean on the shoulder, "Let's talk about it in the past, we still need some time here." Chapter 57. After returning to the cockpit, Anping cut to the chase. As you can see, Xiao Zhuang is not human. However, this is nothing new in the Milky Way. Except for the pair of horns, she is no different from humans, so when you wear the bonnet, just treat her as an ordinary human girl. Sean wanted to say that ordinary human girls would not wield machine guns weighing dozens of kilograms like toys, but obviously Anping didn't plan to discuss Zhuang Yuanying's blood in detail. "That's all for this topic." "Okay, I'll take it lightly." Anping said with a smile, "Well, it's good to take it lightly. Regarding Xia Zhuang's life experience, I can talk to you again when I have a chance. For now, let's take care of the immediate matter." As he spoke, Anping clapped his hands, "Attention everyone, restart the spaceship as soon as possible, we haven't completely won yet." Almost at the same time, Ning Tao's exasperated voice came from the spacecraft's communicator. "You bunch of wasteful trash! Are you going to break your promise and get rich? You promised to protect my safety." Anping smiled and said, "Of the 10 fighters, we have already dealt with 8 of them, and the remaining 2 should be easy for an ace pilot like you. F you." The series of foul language in the communicator came to an abrupt end when Anping cut off the communication. "With such vitality, I shouldn't be able to die for a while." Anping smiled, and sat back in the driver's seat, shaking his body slightly, looking leisurely. Xiaoan couldn't be as calm as the captain. He frowned and activated the radar, watching the changes in the battle situation through the simple light spots on the display. The 2 pitch-black pirate fighter planes had already engaged in a hand-to-hand fight with the cargo ship, which quickly put the cargo ship in trouble. The green light spot representing the cargo ship flickered on the display screen, as if it was on the verge of falling. "Don't look at it, it's useless," Anping said, "before the spacecraft restarts, even if it explodes into fireworks, we can only mourn in silence." Sean said, "At least I can mourn for the first time." "Well said, I wish you a smooth silence." At this moment, all the lights in the cockpit were suddenly turned on, and the red apricot trembled slightly amidst the low engine hum. Anping praised, "Xiao Zhuang's movements are as sharp as ever." Sean was taken aback. After the spaceship entered the shelling mode, in order to lure the enemy to go deep, it did not hesitate to take the initiative to withstand the indiscriminate bombing. Although most of the scars on the body were pre-made camouflage, a small half was genuine. According to the knowledge he learned on the Silver, the Hongxing needs at least one major renovation before the engine can be restarted. Unexpectedly, Zhuang Yuanying can compress such a huge workload into just a few minutes. However, as electric sparks burst out from the console in the cockpit, Sean immediately realized that this restart was probably just an emergency behavior, and a large number of safety steps were omitted. In the current situation, even if the red apricot is barely restarted, it will never be able to fight again. But as the red apricot completed an emergency restart and the tail engine burst into light again, the situation of the battle changed immediately. The two red dots on the radar that symbolize the enemy are like frightened kangaroo chickens, turning their heads and quickly going away. Qinglong's elite fighters actually fled timidly. And just after the Qinglong fighter left the battlefield, the light on the Hongxing went out again. At the same time, there was a rapid knocking of wrenches from the machine repair room. Anping shrugged and said, "It seems that it will take some time to do the second renovation. Fortunately, we still have time. While Xiao Zhuang is doing the renovation, others will go to collect the spoils. This time the shelling has suffered heavy losses." "Oh." The team leader said that the loss was heavy, but his face was filled with a harvest smile. After all, no matter how heavy the loss of the Hongxing, as long as the cargo ship is still there, the Hongxing team will be sure to make a profit. When leaving DUI 4399, Anping led people to search the material warehouse of Quncan Security. Ning Tao carefully raised supplies for his own private soldiers, filling the cargo hold of the armed cargo ship to the brim, so that the 27 survivors had almost nowhere to stay. Now Qinglong's siege network has been pierced, and the road ahead is unimpeded. As long as they return to the base with the cargo ship, the mission of the Red Apricot Squad can be called complete. Facts have proved that there are not so many twists and turns in the world. Half an hour later, Zhuang Yuanying successfully completed the second refurbishment, bringing the dilapidated Hongxing back on track. Although the second refurbishment still omitted a lot of safety steps, causing electric arcs to shoot out from time to time everywhere on the restarted spaceship, but the mechanic assured with a smooth wrench knock that the Red Apricot would be able to carry everyone home. And no one in the team would question Zhuang Yuanying's judgment. The rest of the journey was safe and sound. Even Su Bo, who liked the lively atmosphere the most, just leaned quietly on the seat without saying a word. As the return journey draws to a close, everyone feels a heavy sense of exhaustion. This mission was much longer than expected, and it was exhausting physically and mentally. Even the ecstasy of a complete victory could not offset the tiredness. Now there is nothing more attractive than a warm bed. When the figure of Sun appeared in everyone's sight, there was a burst of applause and cheers in the cabin. "Congratulations everyone, successfully completed the task and returned home triumphantly." "Ah! Finally home." Amidst the joy, only Sean calmly raised the disappointing question. "Can the cargo ship in the back land smoothly? They won't be stopped, right? After all, it was a Quncan Security armed cargo ship that shouldn't be here." Anping said, "At this time, we must fully trust Ning Tao, the former branch chief with great powers." Sean suddenly realized. Compared with the energy Ning Tao showed on DUI 4399. Colluding with pirates, holding a killing contest, sending an unregistered security cargo ship into the deserted area of Sun, it is indeed not no big deal. Facts have proved that Ning Tao, the former director of security, is indeed a supernatural power when it comes to his own safety. He personally drove the cargo ship, swaggered past the satellite defense network of Sun, and then broke through the planet's atmosphere safely and landed on an empty deserted area. During this period, no one came to ask questions, and no alarm was triggered, as if the armed cargo ship was one of thousands of ordinary passenger ships. At the port, there were already people waiting there to welcome the warriors who returned in triumph. The Red Apricot landed first, and the dilapidated spaceship made an earth-shattering noise when it landed. The anti-gravity module and air-jet device that were supposed to play a buffer role failed to play their due role. The meteorite fell to the ground, shaking up the smoke and dust in the sky, and then shook down countless spaceship fragments. Fortunately, the welcoming team at the port had already made preparations. Before the smoke and dust settled, they had gathered around the Red Apricot and carried out maintenance work. Components that are difficult to repair are directly replaced with new ones, and the repair efficiency is surprisingly high. Apparently, Bai Yin treated the Red Apricot Squad triumphantly after recapturing Xianming like a hero. Following behind the red apricot was an armed cargo ship from DUI 4399. After this gigantic cargo carrying thousands of tons of cargo crashed to the ground, a large group of people also surrounded it and quickly refitted it, erasing the traces of Kyunkan's security, making the cargo ship less conspicuous, and quickly moving and diverting the spoils in the cargo hold. Moments later, the cabin door of the cargo ship opened, and 27 survivors filed out. Most of them seemed at a loss, and they didn't feel the joy of surviving at all. After a while, some people even fell to their knees and cried. They did survive, relying on Sean's benevolence and the Hongxing team's outstanding performance. They struggled out of the purgatory of DUI 4399. However, that was all there was to it, except for this life, they lost everything. Legal status, a warm family, a stable job, all of these have gone away from them. They can only start a new life in the deserted area, but this so-called new life that has fallen to the bottom of society is simply worse than death for many people. Sean stepped off the spaceship, looked at the group of mourning survivors, and was speechless for a while. Chapter 58. Sean didn't regret saving these innocent victims, even if he paid a huge price for it. But seeing these survivors bewildered, the Jedi apprentices realized that saving them was not enough. If we just ignore their plight, leave them in the deserted area, and let them fend for themselves, then the so-called saving people is just a luxury performance for self-satisfaction. However, even if he realized this, Sean didn't know how to comfort them. He opened his mouth a few times, but felt that the comforting words he had prepared were too pale. At this moment, a slender girl in the crowd stepped out. She was wearing a tight and sexy cheongsam, with a wide security cape over her shoulders, covering all her bare skin. This nondescript combination made the woman look a bit embarrassed, but there was a bright smile on her face. "Thank you for saving us." The woman took the initiative to hold Sean's hand, and said softly, "I thought it was impossible for me to leave that base alive." Feeling the heat from his palm and the sincerity contained in it, Sean couldn't help but nodded, but he didn't know how to comfort this unknown girl with a positive attitude. However, the other party didn't need Xiao En's comfort. She let go of her hand and said with a relaxed expression, "I'm Huang Xian, how about you?" Sean was a little surprised at Huang Xian's indifference, but he was even more pleased with her strength. "I'm Sean. Well, I will remember the name of the savior for the rest of my life." Huang Xian nodded seriously, and said, "After that, are we going to start a new life here? The deserted area of Sun is quite famous." As soon as the words fell, someone said not far away, "The reputation here is indeed not small, but most of them are rumors. If you really want to start a new life here, you have to put aside all previous impressions." While speaking, Li Yu, the owner of the deserted area and the leader of the Silver Knights, came in front of everyone. The young leader has a natural charisma. Especially when his assistants quietly follow behind, not arguing with the master. His presence makes the survivors forget their sorrows involuntarily and turn their attention to transfer over. The deserted area has never had a good reputation. As the name suggests, it is a place abandoned by civilization. Most of the people living here are abandoned people who cannot live in the sun. But on the other hand, you see, this abandoned world is still alive, exuberant. As Li Yu said, he spread his arms and swept around. Around the empty port is a low-slung shanty town, where hundreds of residents are sheltered by rusted metal panels. On the top of the shanty towns, there are dense pipelines running vertically and horizontally, supplying the shanty towns with everything needed for life. All kinds of residents shuttled among the shanty towns. Although most of them were dressed in shabby clothes and covered with dust, their eyes contained hope for the future, and their hurried steps seemed solid and powerful. They are not like refugees living in a deserted area at all, but more like a group of positive and optimistic pioneers. Li Yu said, "It is very painful to lose the past, but at the same time, it also means that you can embrace the future more easily. I don't think any of you are willing to listen to this kind of empty nonsense, so I will just say a few points practical. First, the upside of the deserted area is very broad, and hundreds of thousands of people leave here every year to reintegrate into the civilized world, and some even regain their lost identities." Hearing this, someone couldn't help but interrupted, "Really? It should be difficult to obtain a legal identity in the civilized world, right?" Li Yu said, "How difficult it is to obtain something is often directly proportional to the difficulty of losing it. Since Kyunkan Group can easily make people who shouldn't lose it, of course it can also easily let people who shouldn't get it. Said let's be blunt, Kyunkan Group is rotten. Such words are undoubtedly harsh and unacceptable to those who have always lived in the sun and enjoyed legal protection. But for a group of people who had just narrowly escaped death, it was logical and justified. Yes, since the Kyunkan group is corrupt enough to tolerate the existence of killing games, there must be a channel to spend money to buy a legal identity, so that people can return to a civilized life. Then someone asked, what if you don't want to integrate into the so-called civilized world? Li Yu said, there is nothing wrong with taking root here. The deserted area has raised generations of abandoned people. Although the living conditions are very different from those in civilized areas, there are also advantages here. For example, there is no Kyunkan group in the deserted area. With a smile, Li Yu added, in addition, I will make short-term work arrangements for each of you to ensure that you can support yourself in the deserted area. After you have accumulated a certain amount, should you continue to live here or return to a civilized society? It's all up to you. Afterwards, Li Yu briefly answered a few more questions, and then sent people to take the survivors out of the port and settle in the temporary residence. When the survivors left, they no longer had the previous panic and desolation, and hope was rekindled in the eyes of most of them. Thank you, Captain. Sean thanked him sincerely. Li Yu smiled lightly and said, don't be sentimental, those words just now are welcome words for every newcomer. While speaking, the assistant robot behind Li Yu had shown a holographic video on his arm in a tacit understanding. The faint blue Li Yu recited almost exactly the same lines on Bai's arm, and he didn't even have much demeanor. Variety. Sean felt even more relieved when he saw it. Although this kind of assembly line greeting seems a little insincere, from another perspective, the Silver Knight's ability to standardize this set of greetings shows that the deserted area has formed a very mature absorption mechanism for outsiders. For those survivors, it can be described as a blessing in misfortune. Li Yu didn't wait for Xiaoan to be immersed in the gratified mood, he clapped his hands and said, okay, after dealing with those newcomers, it's the turn of Director Ning. You are going to rest here for 2 days, or should we immediately embark on the journey of escape? At this time, the last crew member on the cargo ship also staggered out. I saw that Ning Tao was sweating profusely at this time, and his whole body collapsed, as if he had been scalded in water. And it was still boiling water. His face was covered in bruises and blood, and he walked with a limp. It was obviously not a pleasant experience to be on a boat with 27 survivors of his devastation. But Ning Tao didn't even have the energy to get angry at this time, he just stared at Li Yu and asked, will you keep your promise? Li Yu smiled, I just got the news that the ransom has been paid in full, with a total of 23.14 million credit points, which really refreshed my understanding of the rich class in the Qian galaxy. They are richer than I imagined, so much cash in such a short amount of time. Ning Tao's breathing became a little short, you want to turn your back on it. Li Yu said, if you disappear from the world now, I can take 23 million cash all by myself. If it were you, would you accept it? Ning Tao's face became paler. However, at the next moment, Li Yu smiled, fortunately, I'm not you, so congratulations on getting the boat ticket to the core area of the Republic, and I wish you a happy stay in your new home. While speaking, Li Yu handed a shiny golden metal piece to Ning Tao. Ning Tao was a little confused, this is... Your ticket must be kept safe. Li Yu explained, tomorrow at this time, a small spaceship from the core area will land here. The course has been set on the spaceship, and all the fuel has been filled up. As long as you can play the normal level of an ace driver, you can reach your new home without any problems. If you have any questions during the period, you can always find the hut man, and he will provide you with convenient services. By the way, there are still your favorites in the refrigerator, favorite snack candies and Canhara chicken skewers. Ning Tao was dumbfounded when he heard this, the situation turned so fast that his tired and sluggish brain couldn't react at all. Li Yu, what does this mean? Does he really want to let himself go? As long as you take tomorrow's spaceship, you can escape from the dry galaxy and go to the core area of the Republic with nearly 20 million credits to enjoy a comfortable and prosperous life? Is there really such a cheap thing in the world? Wouldn't it be playing hard to get? Wouldn't it be to give people hope first and then despair? That small spaceship wouldn't suddenly explode into fireworks after leaving soon, right? For Ning Tao's full of questions, Li Yu gave a very considerate and thoughtful answer. He punched and kicked Ning Tao to a temporary small hotel next to the port, closed the door of the room, turned around clapping his hands and left. Chapter 59. After sending Ning Tao away, Li Yu turned his head and looked at Xiaoan, who was watching the whole process. It's weird why I'm doing this. Sean looked at the small hotel that looked like a cage, and said, I didn't expect you to be honest and trustworthy, even if you were facing a heinous person. Li Yu smiled and said, Indeed, Ning Tao is heinous. Based on what he did on DUI 4399, it is enough to be sentenced to 10 times of death and 200 years in prison. For such a scum, I don't care even if I break my promise once in a while, being the reputation of the Knights is not earned by being stubborn. Sean added, and the foundation of the Silver Knights is in the deserted area. People here should not be happy to see you let go of a villain from the Kyunkan group. Li Yu was a little surprised and said, unexpectedly, you have already gained an essential understanding of the Silver Knights just after you joined. It is true that I can tear up the agreement regardless of the eyes of my colleagues, but I must consider the hearts of the people in the deserted area. And I believe no matter how the polls are done, at least 90% of the people support Ning Tao's death penalty. But I let him go anyway, do you know why? Sean really couldn't understand Li Yu's logic. Because number 1, public opinion polls can never fully reflect the truth. It is true that 90% of the people here support Ning Tao's death penalty, but if I decide to let Ning Tao go, at least half of the people will reverse their positions on the spot and stand on my side. They will trust me more than they trust themselves. Li Yu's strong self-confidence made Xiao En speechless. Perhaps in this deserted area, Li Yu does have such appeal, even if he refers to the hut people as wild chickens, people will support him without hesitation. Second, it is more beneficial for us to let Ning Tao go. Although killing him can please the people and pocket 23 million cash, letting him go will let the entire galaxy know that Silver Knights can help those people who want to escape from the sea of suffering. Sean couldn't help frowning when he heard that. What's more beneficial? And what is a person who wants to get rid of the sea of suffering? It's like how wronged Ning Tao is. Li Yu saw Xiao En's question and said, the perpetrator may not be able to also be the victim at the same time. Ning Tao is indeed heinous, but he is also just a link in the long chain of persecution. Those who are born rich and powerful can regard him as he was sent away like a running dog, and this is because he has already served as the director of the branch. Before that, he had suffered a lot. Sean couldn't help but asked, are you apologizing for him? I'm just telling the truth. Li Yu said, it is impossible for any corrupt organization not to hurt its own people, and this is the reason why most corrupt organizations eventually collapse. Even the insiders cannot bear the corruption. I can't wait to overthrow it. There are countless people in the Kyunkan group who are in a similar situation to Ning Tao. If there is a chance to give the old club a backstab and then escape, I believe many people will be tempted. And the more tempted people are, the closer the organization is to collapse. Xiao En was silent for a while, and said, your ambition is to overthrow the Kyunkan group. Li Yu laughed, I'm sorry that I got off topic. The correct way to say it is that the more people who are tempted, the more people will come to me for business. Compared with the immeasurable long-term benefits of 23 million short-term benefits, I value the latter more. That's all. Xiao En is very suspicious that Li Yu is not telling the truth, or rather, overthrowing the Kyunkan group may be more important to Li Yu than the so-called long-term benefits. But obviously the other party didn't want to start this topic anymore. Okay, it's rare to complete a arduous task, go back and rest, there are even more arduous tasks waiting for you. That night, Ning Tao in the small hotel was tossing and turning, his obese body was twisting on the simple bed, and the sharp creaking sound of the deformation of the bedboard was constantly being squeezed out. Although in the evening, he carefully asked the hotel staff to bring a few sleeping pills, but he didn't know whether the level of medicine in the deserted area was too backward, or he was too preoccupied. Until late at night, Ning Tao couldn't feel it at all. Until drowsiness falls. Only the dryness of his eyes and the constant pressure from his heart made Ning Tao clearly aware that he was in a state of mental exhaustion and severe lack of sleep. Escaping in a spaceship under such circumstances will undoubtedly pose a great safety hazard. However, the premise is that he really has the opportunity to escape in a spaceship. Ning Tao still couldn't believe that Li Yu would let him go so easily. No matter from which angle he thought about it, Ning Tao was now like a wild chicken on the slaughtering line. Under the erosion of fear, as long as Ning Tao closes his eyes, various sad pictures will always appear in his mind unconsciously. He sees innocent people being driven to their deaths in the boundless wilderness by the blaster guns fleeing, unarmed civilians were driven to fight with Buar giant scorpion, wounded people were tied up on the test bench and tortured by highly poisonous drugs. These are all tragedies that actually happened on DUI 4399, but in the images in Ning Tao's mind, the faces of the victims were all replaced by himself. Finally, after witnessing the tragic death of himself falling off the cliff again, Ning Tao couldn't help but turned over and opened his eyes. He had completely given up on falling asleep. However, the moment he opened his eyes, Ning Tao felt a biting chill spread from the top of his head to his whole body. In front of the bed, I don't know when there is a person standing. After a moment of sluggishness, Ning Tao finally had the reaction of fear. He wanted to shout, but found that his throat could no longer make a sound. He wanted to retreat, but his muscles were already weak. He can only lie on the bed, waiting for the bad luck to come. However, unexpectedly, the person in front of the bed did not kill him, but took 2 steps back, and then took the initiative to light up the dim light by the bed. Then Ning Tao narrowed his eyes and saw the man's face clearly. It was a very familiar young face, a rookie from Silver SA's team. Sean. Ning Tao recalled. Good evening, Director Ning. Sean said in a cold tone, I have a few questions I want to ask you. Ning Tao was stunned for a moment, then realized that the other party's late-night visit was not to kill him, so he nodded quickly, excuse me. Xiao En said, do you know Xia Yan? Ning Tao was taken aback again, how could he not know him? He was the chief of Quncan security and Ning Tao's immediate boss. So, do you know what conflicts he has with the Nan family? Ning Tao was stunned for a longer time this time, because he had no idea what Xiao En was asking. Sean didn't urge him, but just stood quietly in front of the bed, waiting for Ning Tao to answer the question. At this time, the night is dark, and there is still a lot of time that belongs to him. Therefore, instead of impatiently pressing for an incomplete and untrue answer, it is better to give Ning Tao a little more time to think clearly before answering. After all, there will never be a second chance for such a dialogue. Chapter 60. In this night talk, Xiao En secretly left the base of the Red Seeing Squad and sneaked into Ning Tao's room without telling everyone. The base is equal to the empty door wide open. But Sean didn't think he could hide it from everyone, especially the sleepy Anping. As the captain of the team, Anping's insight and determination are excellent, and his daily duties are meticulous. He checks the surveillance video of the base every day, and it is easy to see something strange from it. Once asked at that time, Sean didn't know how to respond. In addition, there are those sentries hiding around the hotel. In order not to cause an alarm, Sean had to let one of them fall into a deep sleep and seize his communicator to report regularly instead of him. These things may be exposed in the early morning of the next day. At that time, Sean, the elite rookie of the Silver Knights, is likely to be regarded as a spy or a traitor. But Sean is willing to take these risks. Because this is an opportunity to get closer to the truth. The reason why he was willing to join the Silver Knights was to use the power of this organization to penetrate the fog faster and reach the truth. Now, a good clue character is in front of you, so you should not miss it no matter what. After a long wait, Sean finally waited until Ning Tao spoke. You just asked me about the conflicts between Xia Yan and the Nan family. To be honest, there are so many conflicts that I don't know how to list them. The 4 major families of the Quncan Group's board of directors, the Xia family, the Nan family, the Chen family, and the Ma family, have mutual respect for each other. With a history of grievances that lasted thousands of years, and the conflict of interests has never ceased, these 4 families are like 4 crazy beasts, biting each other all the time. Sean nodded, these are the basic knowledge of the Dry Galaxy, and he had memorized them thoroughly before he came to the Dry Galaxy on a cargo ship. Ning Tao added, and Xia Yan, as the chief thug of the Xia family, always likes to charge forward, so of course the relationship with the Nan family is also the worst. If I want to talk about specific examples, I can name several at will. For example, Xia Yan he once vigorously suppressed the Nan faction in the Security Bureau, and within a year he removed 3 director-level figures in a row. But he did not show mercy to the other 2. After all, the Security Bureau as a whole as the Xia family is the leader, and the other 3 major families have been suppressed all the time. For example, Xia Yan led a team to arrest many senior officials of the Nan family in the name of security. Sean frowned when he heard this. Of course, this is not the information he wanted, it was too general, but judging from Ning Tao's expression, it didn't seem like he was deliberately concealing it. He really didn't know what to say, so he could only talk in general terms without getting to the point. Xiao En then reminded, is there any conflict that Xia Yan will have to deal with at the expense of his life? When Xia Yan framed the Jedi Master and Apprentice in Xiajing, Xiao En was particularly impressed by the sniper rifle on his head and the gesture of disregarding his own life. Ning Tao was taken aback by the question, regardless of your life? I really don't know about that. Although Xia Yan is nicknamed Buar Fighting Dog and is known for his madness and greed, in fact he has always been meticulous in his work, and even more so. Cherishing his life like gold, he will always hide in the safest position in every bold action. Shan pressed, so, is there anything that can make him uncharacteristically? Ning Tao was silent for a long time, and after a long time smiled wryly, I really don't know, and I've never seen him risk his life. Xiao En reminded, what about Nan Heli's death? Ning Tao was surprised, Nan Heli? That's Nan's own security dereliction of duty. What does it have to do with Director Xia Yan? Soon the sub-bureau has always obeyed the orders of the head office and refused to intervene with other branches in the head office, so Nan Heli you can't blame others if something happened on your own land. Afterwards, Xia Yan didn't reach out to the Sun sub-bureau, so it's rare to save face for the Nan family. Is this a contradiction? Xiao En observed Ning Tao carefully, and found that his surprise was sincere. Obviously he really thought that Nan Heli's death was an accident. Then what about Nan Qunyu? Ning Tao was even more surprised, didn't he die by accident? If you have to say it, he didn't die honestly in his own territory, but ran to the capital to die. It's really a headache, but that's all. Shan nodded. Although no substantive information has been obtained, at least it can be clarified that Nan Qunyu's death is currently regarded as an accidental death by the official. It can be regarded as a blessing in misfortune, at least it is much better than the official planting of the Jedi. But at this moment, Ning Tao suddenly remembered something, if you don't mention the conflict with the Nan family, I know who can make Director Xia Yan risk his life. The elder council of the Xia family. It is said that Xia Yan himself is relying on the appreciation of the council of elders, he can be promoted all the way to the position of director of the security bureau. Shan asked, so he is grateful to the council of elders? No, he will not be grateful to dade to anyone, but the council of elders can promote him, and of course he can discard him. The pawns in the hands of the council of elders have never spared their lives when they do things, because they don't want to experience torture that is worse than death. Speaking of this, Ning Tao even shivered involuntarily. This detail made Xiao En trust his rhetoric. But then, I heard Ning Tao say again, but the elder council of the four major families will never easily go to war with other families, let alone murder the members of the board of directors of Qunkan Group. This is the taboo of the four major families, and it is also theirs. It is the foundation of life. The Qunkan Group was run by the four major families thousands of years ago, and it is still the four major families today. Thousands of years of internal fighting have never harmed the overall situation, thanks to the restraint of the elder council of the four major families. Otherwise, the dry galaxy would have fallen into civil strife. Shan was surprised to hear that. He could hear the sincerity in Ning Tao's tone. Even though he had made up his mind to defect from the Qunkan Group, he still didn't want people to criticize it. But then the problem becomes more subtle. If the Council of Elders was really as restrained as Ning Tao said, why did they attack Nan Heli, and then boldly framed the Jedi Masters and apprentices sent by the Republic? Is it the political structure of the dry galaxy that has undergone earth-shaking changes recently? Or is it that the death of Nan Heli announced the collapse of the order that had lasted for thousands of years, and the Senate Council had to let go of its consistent insistence? In any case, this means that something earth-shattering has happened in the Gan Galaxy, and the most incredible thing is that even Ning Tao, who is barely considered a high-level person, was kept in the dark. Countless conjectures instantly appeared in Jedi Sotu's mind, but obviously, none of these conjectures could be confirmed or falsified here. So Shan had no choice but to tap his forehead lightly to forcefully dispel those chaotic thoughts. Since it is impossible to get the truth directly from Ning Tao, it is also possible to settle for the next best thing. He continued to ask, how much do you know about what happened on DUI 9527? In fact, this is what Shan is most concerned about right now. He is actually more concerned about Master's safety than the truth about the galaxy. However, Ning Tao asked blankly, what's wrong with DUI 9527? Shan was a little unbelievable, you are the bureau chief of DUI, right? You don't even know what happened on your site. Ning Tao was immediately aggrieved by the question, and his tone was even a little rude, you also know that I am the director of the DUI branch of the asteroid belt? The lowest position among the 8 branches of Qunkan security is the DUI sub-bureau is lower than the polluting planet Gen sub-bureau. There are thousands of fragmented asteroids, how can I manage these thousands of people? While talking, Ning Tao sighed again, and said, in fact, no one expects me to be able to manage it. DUI is a large-scale garbage disposal plant in the entire GAN galaxy, and all kinds of shady things go to asteroids. Bring it in and do it, the idea is that no one can control it. Some pharmaceutical companies conduct illegal experiments there, some officials who claim to be clean and honest build their own private mansions there, and some famous model husbands keep mistresses there. By the way, everything you see on DUI 4399 it is also a very typical example. Many of the powerful children killed by you are from the 4 major families. They have long been tired of the usual excitement, and they can only be satisfied by slaughtering living people. It's already been in the galaxy, and I'm just a current receptionist. Sean snorted coldly, but didn't take this sentence seriously. Many scumbags refuse to face their sins until they die, and will only try their best to find excuses for themselves, and this Ning Tao is nothing more than deceiving himself and others in exchange for peace of mind, so that his next hidden rich man life can go on in peace. Sean is extremely disdainful of this, but right now he doesn't have the extra energy to argue with such a despicable person. Nanheli has a private manor in DUI 9527, which was attacked by pirates Suzaku not long ago. Before Xiaoan finished speaking, he saw Ning Tao's tiny eyes widen in disbelief. Suzaku attacked Nanheli Manor? Impossible. Chapter 61. Sean was suffocated by the rhetorical question of impossible. This Ning Tao is DUI's security supervisor, right? A vicious public security incident occurred on his own territory where pirates ransacked his home. Not only did he not know about it after so long, he couldn't even guess the possibility. Besides raising private soldiers and poisoning innocent people, what else would he do? Being glared at by Xiaoan, Ning Tao was also wronged. This matter is really unbelievable. Among the civilian armed forces in the DUI area, only Qinglong, Suzaku and Bian can be called, among which Suzaku essentially, they are a group of rabble, with neither foundation nor background. Although there are many people and powerful people, they can't accomplish anything at all. Cost. Sean's heart moved, and he asked, so behind Suzaku there must be a high-ranking envoy to embolden them. Ning Tao pondered for a moment, then nodded, that's the only way I can understand it. If there is no big person to instigate, the Suzaku people will not dare to do anything when they see the Nan family's logo. But it doesn't make sense, if it is really the top management of the Kyunkan group who instigated it, there is no reason to hide it from me. Xiaoan snorted coldly, completely giving up hope on this person. I thought that Ning Daotang, the bureau chief, was considered to be half of the top executives of the Kyunkan group, so he should be well informed. So Sean visited late at night at no hesitation, but in exchange for asking all kinds of questions, he didn't know anything. Ning Tao felt uncomfortable from being hummed, and after pondering for a while, he said, I still don't think this makes any sense. No matter who the mastermind behind Suzaku is, since he has trusted a bunch of mobs, he can't trust me for no reason. Why do you look down on my ability to work? I am also the security director of the area. If this matter can be concealed all the time, it will be fine. Once it is exposed, where will I be placed? This is tantamount to blatantly contemptuous of the Security Bureau. Authority. There's no reason to do that. Xiaoan thought for a while, and admitted that Ning Tao's analysis had some truths. Instructing a group of pirates to attack the Nanjia Manor without telling the local security director, this is indeed suspected of causing civil unrest. But objective reality is more powerful than any theoretical analysis. The atrocities committed by Suzaku on DUI 9527 were witnessed by Xiaoan with his own eyes, so it cannot be faked. Ning Tao said, so there is only one possibility left for this matter. Although I also think it is absurd, after thinking about it, the only explanation that makes sense is that this matter was done by the Nan family. This time it was Sean's turn to widen his eyes, exclaiming in disbelief in his heart. This guy is too whimsical. The Nan family invited pirates to attack their manor? However, at the next moment, Xiaoan was startled again, because he suddenly realized that this explanation really made sense. If this is a private matter of the Nan family, it is true that Ning Tao cannot be notified, so that he will always be kept in the dark. Now that I think about it, Nanheli's death may not have been caused by family infighting. After all, the dignified head of the family, a member of the board of directors of the group, died suddenly, and then sent a Nan Kunyu as a gift. The Nan family's reaction to this was obviously not enough intense. While Xiao En was pondering, Ning Tao suddenly said again, speaking of which, there are indeed people in the Nan family who can do such a thing. Who? Nan Yujin. Shan vaguely felt that the name sounded familiar, but before he could ask carefully, he suddenly heard footsteps outside the door. Shan's heart trembled, realizing that his whereabouts might be exposed. He quickly turned off the bedside lamp, and quietly evacuated from the bedroom window. Almost at the same time, Ning Tao's door was pushed open, and a tired and impatient voice came. Don't sleep, wake up. Your spaceship has arrived ahead of time, so get ready to go. Ning Tao was also confused, are you here early? Yeah, the Hutts changed their minds temporarily and asked us to act early, so everyone had to get up in the middle of the night to work overtime. Okay, stop talking nonsense, do you still want to leave? Ning Tao was in doubt, but in the end his yearning for a better life of a wealthy man in the hidden world overcame everything. He gritted his teeth and said, let's go. Outside the window, Shan sighed in his heart. There are still many questions that I haven't had time to ask in detail. But it can only stop here. Fortunately, there are still some gains. After the question and answer with Ning Tao, although they failed to find out the truth directly, they found a clue to find out the truth, Nan Yujin. Shan at least gets a worthy name. The Jedi apprentice thought all the way, and quietly returned to the underground base of the Red Apricot Squad. When he walked to the door of his bedroom, Shan also felt a burst of tiredness and couldn't help yawning. During the entire task of recovering Xianming, Xiao En was always busy on the front line, and he was already extremely exhausted. Only relying on the protection of the original force, he was able to keep running while everyone else was asleep. Go talk to Ning Tao at night. At this time, the night talk was over, tiredness surged, and Shan couldn't hold on anymore. However, just as he was about to go back to his room to rest, he suddenly found a person standing in front of the door. That person was tall and smiling. It was Li Yu, the head of the Silver Knights. Shan's breathing stopped for a moment. Why is Li Yu here? Did he already know that he just went to meet Ning Tao privately? Is he here to catch rape? The next moment, the Jedi apprentice calmed down, exhaled lightly and said with a smile, Good evening, head. Well, good evening. Li Yu waved his hand at Shan friendly, if you don't rest so late, no matter how energetic young people are, they will inevitably hurt themselves. Shan asked, then can I go to rest now? Now let you go to rest, can you really sleep? Li Yu smiled, now I have a good news and a bad news, which one do you want to hear first? Shan said, let's hear the bad news first. Li Yu said, the bad news is that during this mission, your losses have increased from 3 million to 6 million. Xiao En froze for a moment before realizing that Li Yu was referring to the armed cargo ship seized from DUI 4399, and the spoils were worth tens of millions. In order to save people, Shan voluntarily gave up this part of the task bonus. But Shan himself didn't care at all. The Jedi Knights would not be greedy for property. Whether it was 3 million or 6 million, it was nothing but a fleeting moment to him. On the contrary, the fact that 27 innocent lives were saved was a great comfort to Shan. What about the good news? Li Yu said, the good news is that there will be clues to what you want soon. What do I want? Information. Li Yu smiled, you have people and things you want to inquire about, right? For example, the survivors in that manner in DUI 9527 and so on. At this moment, Shan's heartbeat accelerated uncontrollably. Chapter 62. Xiao En's reaction made Li Yu laugh. Haha, don't be so serious, as if you were caught and raped. It's just a night tour, and it's not absconding with debts, and it didn't violate the prohibition of the knights. What's more, none of the members of the Red Apricot Squad violated it. More than 180 bans? If we really want to pursue it, El Yunnan should have been tied to a hyperspace engine by us and launched into an unknown area. While Li Yu was talking, he patted Shan's shoulder with a laugh, but this relaxed gesture made Shan, who had tense muscles, even more nervous. Ordinary people's smiles are meant to express goodwill, but this leader of the Silver Knights can contain completely different emotions in his smile, making it completely unpredictable what he really thinks. He couldn't even guess Li Yu's position. In fact, this is also the question Shan is most concerned about right now, what kind of role does the Silver Knights play in the Dry Galaxy? What role did you play in the action of DUI 9527? Does Li Yu know about what happened in the Nan family, about the master and apprentice of the Jedi? Xiao En was in deep thought for a while, when Li Yu patted his shoulder again. Okay, don't think so much, and there's no need to be so nervous. I'm not interested in your secrets, so I don't need to be so fully on guard. Shan just watched Li Yu silently. Li Yu shrugged his shoulders helplessly. Okay, let me put it another way, do you really think your secret is great? Don't forget, I picked you up on the boat at DUI 9527. If I really want to, there are many ways to reveal your secret. Shan couldn't help sighing when he heard this. In fact, this is what Jedi apprentices have always worried about, their own secret. If Li Yu wanted to know, he probably already knew it. So what? Li Yu said, so you can completely let go of your guard, I am really not interested in your secrets. Bian can cleverly survive in the cracks of dry galaxies, the most important trick is not to explore unnecessary, the secret to explore. When I picked you up, I just took a fancy to you, not the secret you carry. If you don't explore, the secret doesn't exist. This is tantamount to deceiving yourself. What if my secret will endanger the safety of the Silver Knights? Li Yu said, you are deceiving yourself by asking this question. Why do you think that your little secret is qualified to threaten the safety of the Silver Knights? Has the Kyunkan Group issued a sky-high reward order against you? A public call, all the people in the galaxy unite to arrest you, life or death. Shan was taken aback by the question. Li Yu said again, the so-called secret you are carrying is nothing more than offending a certain high-level executive of the Kyunkan Group, and then being assigned to DUI 9527 for house arrest. But don't forget that the Red Apricot squad you are in has just killed dozens of soldiers from Kyunkan security, and even hijacked the bureau chief. Bai Yin is not even afraid of this kind of thing, and is afraid of carrying a trivial little secret. After hearing this, Xiao En couldn't help but feel that what Li Yu said made a lot of sense. Indeed, compared to the previous series of daring actions of the Red Apricot squad, my mere status as a Jedi apprentice seems nothing. So this leads to the next question, who is the Silver Knights? Li Yu saw through Xiao En's doubts, and couldn't help laughing, this is the truly valuable secret, so of course I can't tell you now. You just need to remember now, whether it is me or the whole Silver, yes, you have no malicious intentions, you should try to trust us more instead of always being wary of us. Xiao En couldn't help but fell into deep thought when he heard the words. Of course, he couldn't trust Li Yu unconditionally just because of Li Yu's words, but there seemed to be no better choice other than that. In confusion, the Jedi apprentice closed his eyes, trying to feel the guidance of the Force. Thinking may lead people into misunderstandings, but the guidance of the Force will not. And since entering the dry galaxy, Shan feels that his connection with the Force has become closer, and he can gain more inspiration from it. Soon, Shan saw some messy flashing images. In the images, he and Li Yu were fighting side by side, covering each other in the hail of bullets, advancing step by step. Although the picture is fleeting, the meaning in it is clear enough. Shan savored the aftertaste of this revelation, then opened his eyes with a relaxed smile, I understand. Li Yu replied with a smile, just figure it out, take the time to rest now, we will leave on time tomorrow morning. Shan was taken aback, let's go? Where are you going? Of course it's a mission. Li Yu said, I just received an urgent request. An old friend asked us to escort her from Suan to the capital Shijing. The mission specification is very high. It is necessary to mobilize the backbone of the entire Night Order to participate, and you are suitable as the representative of the Red Apricot squad. Xiao En was taken aback when he heard the words, he, a rookie who just joined the group, could represent the Red Apricot team? Seeing Xiao En's puzzled face, Li Yu said helplessly, you have also performed missions in the Red Apricot squad. Do you think there are other more suitable candidates in the team? Xiao En tried to think about it. The Shichuang Yuanying was obviously not suitable. Apart from character factors, those horns also meant that she should not leave the familiar environment. Uncle Su was also not suitable. Just like a doctor who eats and drinks water will never survive 3 days, El Yunan is probably the worst candidate, and only Anping can bear her iconic sneer. As for the captain, Anping, he is more suitable than Xiao En, but the problem is that if the Red Apricot team does not have Anping, it may be torn apart in a few days. Li Yu put on a tragic posture, and said sadly, understood, you are the only suitable candidate. Shan asked again, so this mission is the good news you said, Captain? That client knows the information about the survivors in the manor. Li Yu sighed and said, I can't answer your questions so directly. The client's information needs to be kept strictly confidential. This is the basic professional ethics in this industry. So you can think about this question yourself. Early the next morning, Sean arrived on board the Silver on time, and was greeted by a strong onlooker from the entire crew. Haha, welcome back, isn't the Red Seeing team having a hard time? Have you been beaten up by Anping under the pretext of entering the team? Does Liu Nan still like to look at people with his nostrils? Is Uncle Su dead? He still owes me $19. From these passionate and sincere words, Xiao En felt a different kind of warmth. Unfortunately, before he had time to respond one by one, the crowd watching him was dispersed by Li Yu. Go away, don't take advantage of the opportunity to be lazy here. Li Yu possessed the supreme authority in the Silver Knights when his assistants were silent. When he stared, the crowd of onlookers dispersed in a rush, and Xiao En finally regained his composure. However, Li Yu didn't make a special trip to give Xiao En peace. After dismissing his subordinates, the knight leader turned around and gave a respectful knight salute behind him. Dear guests, please get on board, everything is ready, and we are ready to go at any time. Well, it's time to work. The voice from the cabin door was soft and generous, as if it contained incredible power, and people were involuntarily attracted to it. Xiao En turned his head and saw a woman in an apricot yellow dress, led by Li Yu, boarded the Silver. The woman wears a black and white veil that covers her face. As she walks, with the slight ups and downs of the veil, a sharp corner of her white chin is sometimes exposed, making people curious about the true face hidden behind the veil. But people are doomed to find it hard to get what they want, because the woman's gait is meticulous, her back is even more straight, and the veil that covers her face rises and falls slightly, leaving no dead ends. Sean glanced at it, then lowered his gaze. The half-covered veil and the sometimes disappearing chin, in Sean's view, are more like a woman's temptation to the outside world. Everyone who is curious about women is being carefully observed by women. This is a very guarded woman, and Sean doesn't want to arouse the other party's excessive vigilance. After all, she is not only Li Yu's old friend, the client of this escort mission, but also the good news for Sean. The master's whereabouts may fall on this woman. However, Sean took the initiative to restrain his sense of existence, but the woman stopped in front of Sean and asked curiously, "Is this the newcomer on the ship?" Li Yu laughed, his eyes are like torches, "This guy is indeed a newcomer." The woman said, "The smell on him is completely different from yours. Maybe it's because he just finished a mission and hasn't had time to take a shower." Li Yu said as he guided the woman all the way forward, obviously not wanting the woman to delve into the matter of Sean's identity at the cabin door of the Silver. "Go down." Along the way, Li Yu followed closely beside the woman, carefully introducing all kinds of bizarre stories on the Silver, about half of which were made up on the spot. The woman was fascinated by what she heard, and quickly forgot about Xiao En. Sean shrugged regretfully, but he didn't care. Starting from Suan to the capital Kun, if you take the shortest route, you can arrive in a few standard hours at most. However, this time the escort mission chose a rather remote route. There are several dangerous areas in the planetary belt DUI, so there is still a lot of time on the road. Sean believed that he would have enough opportunities to contact the good news lady and get the news he wanted from her. But before that, he still has a lot of work to do. Li Yu left him a job list, which listed densely packed work items, from spacecraft maintenance to weapon system debugging, from combatant simulation training to kitchen help. The project content can be described as all-encompassing. Let Xiao En felt the profound meaning of the phrase representing the Red Apricot Squad. He needs one person to complete the workload of a team. Chapter 63. However, Sean was busy until the night of GST and was unable to see Ms. Good News again. The good news lady didn't seem to want to have more contact with the people on the Silver. After listening to Li Yu's story, she stayed quietly in the room, waiting for the spaceship to take her to her destination. During this period, the woman stayed behind closed doors throughout the whole process, and even 3 meals were provided through the special transmission pipeline in the cabin, and she did not meet anyone at all. So at the end of the day, Xiao En got nothing but busy work on the boat, so tired that he wanted to stick out his tongue. So much so that when it was dinner time, Sean couldn't help being in a trance, and he didn't even realize that the Kanyuan chicken cake on his plate was snatched away by the person next to him. Fortunately, someone stopped this evil in time. Chen Sanwan beside Xiao En unceremoniously stretched out his chopsticks, returned the chicken cakes from the thief's plate to the original owner, then frowned and reprimanded, "Huang Suan, Are you ashamed? Even the young man grabbed the food too. Huang Suan, who was caught on the spot, giggled, it's because he loses his appetite, so as not to waste food. As a result, a crew member next to him interjected, what's the lack of appetite? It's simply lust. He ran to see the client when he had nothing to do that day, but the door of his house was closed and he didn't give him a chance to meet. Then that's why I don't think about eating and drinking. As soon as this remark came out, the noisy restaurant fell silent instantly, and the next moment, most of the crew members of the restaurant gathered. There is no exhaustion after work on the faces of these people, only the enthusiasm when they hear gossip. Tell me in detail. Sean fell in love with that client? Really? The client wears a veil all the time, and never shows his face, right? Can you like this? Ignorance. It's true that she didn't show her face, but her figure can still be seen. Do you think Xiaoan is your superficial face party? I don't think it has anything to do with his face and body. He is purely looking at his richness. That client is a rich woman who is willing to hire a whole crew of the silver for a trip in the galaxy, thus spending millions of Kyunkan coins. Damn it, doesn't that mean Sean will be prosperous from now on? Sean, from today on, I'm your best friend. A group of people were arguing, and the topics became more and more outrageous. After a while, everyone was planning how to get Xiaoan to divorce the rich woman as soon as possible to divide up the family property. Sean couldn't laugh or cry when he heard it. As a topical character, he couldn't even intervene from the beginning to the end. He simply didn't say a word, silently picked up the food on the dinner plate, and let the people around him arrange his marriage affairs. He only planned in his mind how to find an opportunity to meet the good news lady next time. And at this moment, someone in the crew suddenly raised an interesting topic. By the way, who is that rich woman? Sister Qian, do you know? The woman called Sister Qian was a secretary crew member who directly served Bai Yin on the Bian, and she was quite well informed and reliable. Although just now when everyone was talking nonsense about arranging Sean, she was the one with the most open mind. But people also knew it was just a joke of hers. When it comes to business, Sister Qian is always the most reliable. Sister Qian shook her head, I don't know at all, the client's information is top secret, only Boss Li and Master Bai know about it. Wait, top secret matters? Generally speaking, does the client's information need to be kept so strictly confidential? Last month Kanyuan Agriculture asked us to go to Gen to collect contaminated biological samples, and the client's information was not correct to us. Keep it a secret. Sister Qian shrugged, it's up to you to think about it yourself, I can't say too much. This sentence undoubtedly aroused people's desire to find out, and soon someone put forward clues with great interest. I remember that the last time the client was classified as a top secret task was DUI 9527. DUI 9527? That's right, the whole mission is cloudy from beginning to end, from the client to the details of the mission, only Boss Li and Master Bai know. Wait, isn't that where Sean went? Is it the boat? At this moment, Huang Suan, who was in the crowd, suddenly had his eyes lit up. He couldn't help but reach out and slap the dining table, making a loud noise, and shouted loudly, damn, everything is connected. People around turned their eyes away one after another, even ignoring Huang Suan's slap, which caused soup to splash on many dinner plates and stained everyone's clothes. People crowded together and asked questions enthusiastically. How did you get in touch? Come and let us criticize. Huang Suan beamed and said, the rich woman is probably a daughter of the four major families, and Xiaoan is her childhood sweetheart. The two have been in love since childhood, but they were obstructed by the family in every possible way because of the difference in background. As the two grew up, as the years got older, they remained infatuated with each other, so the resistance of the family grew. One day, the family simply arrested Xiaoan and put him under house arrest in DUI 9527. Then they used Xiaoan's life to force the rich woman to obediently accept political marriage. However, the rich woman believed in true love and refused to give in. In desperation, she hired us Silver Knights to go to the rescue. At the same time, the family got the news and chose to use their tricks. They recruited Suzaku to attack the manor, trying to wipe out the roots and kill them. Sean. After a great battle, Sean did not die in the chaos of war, but seized the opportunity to board the silver, and successfully obtained our asylum. But of course it's not enough to just rescue Xiaoan. During this period of time, the rich woman has fully used her political resources, fought desperately against the family's resistance, and won a chance for her love. Next, she will bring Xiao En and return to the family headquarters in Shijing, the capital, to have a showdown with the family. Whether the two can stay together forever is a battle. Before the decisive battle, both of them felt uneasy. Xiao En wanted to spend the last comfortable time with the rich woman, but the rich woman was afraid that the temporary comfort would make her lose her fighting spirit, so she chose to stay behind closed doors. At the same time, in order to protect Xiao En, so I tried my best to suppress my feelings, pretending that I didn't recognize him. I only waited until the decisive battle was won, and then released the love in my heart to my heart's content. Speaking of this, Huang Xuan slammed the dining table again, raised his neck and asked everyone, "How is it? Do you think my analysis makes sense?" At this moment, even Shan was dumbfounded. This guy's analysis was so reasonable that even Shan himself almost believed it. It turns out that I am still entangled with such a touching love story. Shan himself was shocked, let alone others. After a short period of silence, the restaurant immediately fell into a sea of noise. People gathered around Shan, singing the praises of the great love, and offering their blessings to the suffering couple. For a while, there were more chicken patties on Shan's dinner plate. Countless, a mountain of meatloaf was formed. Even Chen Sanwan sighed. Unexpectedly, the unforgettable love story behind Xiao En was discovered by Huang Xuan, a middle-aged virgin. Huang Xuan was triumphant. What's wrong with being a virgin? The more virgin you are, the more you will be able to transcend the disturbances of the world of mortals and see through the ways of the world. A man like you who started a family early will only be blinded by the mediocre family life. At this moment, Huang Xuan seemed to stand on top of the world, looking down on all beings from an incomparably noble perspective. Until a cold snort sounded behind him. "Since it's so good to be pure-hearted and ascetic, then I'll clear up the bad video data you collected, don't you have any objection?" Huang Xuan fell from the top of the world to the abyss in an instant. "Li, boss Li? When did you come?" With a sullen face, Li Yu said softly, "Let's start with you stealing Shan's chicken pie." Huang Xuan's face turned ashen immediately. "Boss Li, I was wrong, those video materials, please be merciful." Li Yu ignored the failed virgin, but looked around, looked at a group of crew members who were also turned off, and said, "Since you are so energetic, why don't you come to 2 rounds of training before going to bed?" The word training seems to have a huge magical power, directly causing a group of happy crew members to panic. "Boss Li, don't make such a horrible joke. I'll have nightmares tonight." Li Yu said with a faint smile, "So you still expect to be able to sleep and dream at night?" "I rely on Boss Li not to do this, I have to go back and change my pants." After all, Li Yu didn't kill his own family members. After dispelling this group of troublemakers, he sat down in front of Xiao En. At this time, only the two of them were left in the restaurant. Li Yu sighed, and said, "In the past few years, my subordinates have been insisting on happy education, which made them a little too happy." Xiao En shook his head and said with a smile, "It's nothing, those whimsical brain holes are somewhat inspiring." Chapter 64. The inspiration Shan said was the out-and-out truth. Although Huang Xuan's improvised love story was essentially nonsense, several key plots did give him inspiration. Although the Jedi apprentices still can't see the truth of the situation, they have vaguely grasped the clues leading to the truth. Li Yu said, "It's good to be inspired, but unfortunately, the client is much more introverted than I thought. I thought that after introducing her to the various legends and stories on the ship, she would become interested in the Bian, and would just hang out on the ship when she was free. Go shopping. It seems that I am being sentimental." Before the words finished, Bai's voice sounded from Li Yu's wrist. "If your lame stories copied from street stalls can be more reasonable, the probability of her going out will indeed be higher." Li Yu defended helplessly, "I thought that the children of the rich in spring and snow would be more interested in street stall literature out of curiosity." Bai said, "With your background and experience, why do you think you can understand the thoughts of rich people's children? Are you here on a special trip to raise the bar? I want to remind you that the spacecraft radar has scanned a large number of hostile units, please return to the cockpit as soon as possible to command." Li Yu's complexion changed. Hostile units? A large number? This kind of place? While speaking, Li Yu didn't care about comforting Xiao En, and rushed towards the cockpit like the wind, and a few seconds later, the red warning light was lit in the spaceship. The happy atmosphere on the silver was swept away, and all the crew members put down their laughing expressions, and entered their respective posts seriously to prepare for the challenge. Xiao En also changed into his combat uniform and quickly got into position. His position on the silver was a mechanic, and soon he saw Chen Sanwan and other familiar faces in the mechanic room at the back of the spaceship. Under the flashing warning lights, Chen Sanwan's gentle face had turned into a serious one. He simply nodded at Xiao En, and then continued to focus on the dashboard in front of him. All the data about the silver was collected here, and Chen Sanwan had to be keenly aware of any anomalies in them, and eliminate them as soon as possible. This mechanic system is very similar to the red apricot, relying on the on-the-spot performance of the mechanic to allow the spacecraft to explode beyond the normal performance. However, the size of the silver is much larger than that of the red apricot, and the systems inside the spaceship have also become much more complicated. Sean tacitly stood on Chen Sanwan's assistant's seat, and while cooperating with him in the final renovation and fine-tuning, he was also a little curious, who is blocking the Bian here? At present, the Bian has completed more than half of its voyage, and it is at the edge of the asteroid belt Dui between Sun and Kun. This is a rather remote and dangerous area, and even smuggling ships rarely pass by here. Place. However, the Silver's radar scanned a large number of hostile units. This route was chosen by Mrs. Good News, which deviated from the conventional route completely, apparently in order to avoid some possible troubles. But now it seems that instead of avoiding the trouble, the Silver number seems to have thrown itself into a trap. Not long after, with the violent shaking of the Silver, the battle officially started. Almost instantly, an ensemble-like siren sounded from the dashboard, and among the many readings that Chen Sanwan had finally adjusted to the normal range, 1/3 of them entered the alarm range. Chen Sanwan gritted his teeth, quickly picked up the tools, and sometimes connected and sometimes blocked the intricate pipelines in the machine repair room, just like a skilled sewing worker, patching the loopholes of the spaceship one by one. However, the pilot of the Silver was not willing to cherish Chen Sanwan's efforts at all, and kept issuing whimsical instructions. Sometimes the engine of the spacecraft is overloaded, and amazing maneuverability bursts out in emergency maneuver mode. Sometimes the weapon system asks for a large amount of energy and coolant, and it can be called a violent firepower output. During this period, the spaceship was always under extremely intensive firepower, and the sirens of the shield system almost never stopped. Chen Sanwan was so busy in the mechanic repair room that his feet didn't touch the ground, and his expression gradually became grim due to more and more abnormal readings. For Chen Sanwan, a senior mechanic, the Silver number was almost like a relative. 30,000 relatives are suffering inhuman torture, but he doesn't even have the strength to curse. Xiao En followed closely beside Chen Sanwan, trying his best to relieve his pressure. Although Shan was not in the cockpit and could not see the whole picture of the battle, he could only speculate on the battle situation through the readings on the instrument panel in the machine repair room. But it is clear that the situation is not optimistic. Given how much Li Yu cherished the Silver, if it weren't for the dangerous situation, it would be impossible for him to issue such an extreme order. According to Xiao En's understanding of Li Yu, he prefers to deal with opponents while laughing, and only when it is absolutely necessary, he will put on a gesture of going all out with a frown. Boom! Accompanied by a muffled sound not far away, sparks lingered on the instrument panel, and several reading pointers stopped immediately, while the Jedi apprentice felt the metal floor under his feet rippling like water waves. Chen Sanwan was stunned for a moment, and then roared, "The cooling chamber of the left engine has been pierced." Hearing this, Shan picked up the toolbox next to the door of the machine repair room without hesitation, and rushed to the engine area of the Silver with all his strength. Only halfway through, he felt a wave of heat rushing towards his face. The engine area in front of him had already ignited a raging sea of flames, and the flames spread rapidly along the passage, and all the automatic fire extinguishing devices along the way were paralyzed. Shan realized that the road was blocked after just one glance, and when he was thinking about how to deter, several crew members had already rushed up beside him, each of them carrying a fire extinguisher, spraying a large amount of fire extinguishing agent forward. The momentum of the flames was contained in an instant, and when Xiao En saw it, he stepped on the still warm floor and charged forward without hesitation. The crew members in charge of extinguishing the fire followed closely beside Shan without saying a word, using fire extinguishing agents to open the way for him. But as everyone got closer to the cooling room, the flames in front became more intense, and it became difficult to maintain the portable fire extinguisher. Shan didn't hold back, he stopped immediately, his eyes scanned the surroundings, and immediately locked on a slightly raised metal plate on the wall. Shan pulled out a wrench, smashed the metal plate up high, and then stretched out his hand to lift off the thick plate along the raised part, exposing several control lines that were arced by overload. He took a quick glance and confirmed that these overloaded lines were the culprits that caused the automatic fire extinguishing device to be paralyzed, so he quickly blocked one of the lines that was seriously short-circuited with a chemical inhibitor, and then notified Chen Sanwan in the communicator to replace it control lines. A few seconds later, the automatic fire extinguishing device in the surrounding area quickly restarted, and the composite fire extinguishing agent was ejected from the holes in all directions, extinguishing the raging flames in an instant, and taking away the residual high temperature at the same time. Sean took a deep breath and walked into the cooling room with the toolbox. Yet with just one look, he realized the left engine was not going to save. The cooling chamber was pierced by several high-energy particle beams. These particle beams not only penetrated the shield and armor of the Silver, but also smashed the variable temperature controller and the coolant storage tank of the cooling chamber. The latter being the most deadly. The flammable coolant was ignited by the high temperature and ignited a raging flame. Although the flame is now extinguished, the storage tank is still completely empty. Theoretically, the Silver can draw coolant from the cooling chambers of the right engine and the rear engine, but the spacecraft is still in a state of emergency maneuver, all engines are running at overload, and there is no coolant left. Likely to lead to chain crashes. Xiao En informed Chen Sanwan of the result, and got silence in response. Obviously, Chen Sanwan in the machine repair room was at his wit's end. Chapter 65. Just when the situation was critical, Bai's voice came from Xiao En's communicator. The front turret of the spaceship still has excess coolant. I have sent someone to send it to you. Please complete the repairs as soon as possible and restore the power of the spaceship. Very good. Sean clenched his fist vigorously, and returned his gaze to the pierced coolant storage tank. In no time, he was drawing up repair plans in his head and putting them into practice. The damaged parts in the cooling chamber were repaired and filled one by one. Although it was still a mess from the outside, as long as the coolant was in place, it was only a matter of time before it resumed operation. Sean waited patiently in the cooling room, but after a few minutes, the cooling fluid promised by Bai was still not in place. Just when he couldn't help urging, Bai Na's invariable voice came from the communicator, the transporter was seriously injured in an accident, please quickly go to the cabin aisle to meet him and get the coolant. Sean let out a sigh of relief, has door-to-door delivery become door-to-door pickup? All right. While talking, he turned and left the cooling room, and ran towards the passenger cabin passage. He didn't question why Bai didn't appoint other people to continue to complete the cargo transportation. If he had to run around as a mechanic, now is really not the time to argue. And when he came all the way to the cabin passage, he immediately understood Bai's helplessness. The entire passageway of the passenger cabin was riddled with holes from the metal fragments from the outside, although the holes in the outer armor had been urgently filled by the mechanic robot, and the negative pressure was no longer generated. But the fatal problem is, beside the cabin passage of the Silver, there are a large number of material pipelines integrated. At this time, these pipelines are all overturned under the impact, and the broken metal pipes are poked in all directions in the passage, like interlaced animal teeth. And between the countless canine teeth, the two crew members responsible for carrying the coolant tank and the accompanying guards were all down in a pool of blood. Some were pierced through the abdomen by metal pipes, and some were pierced through the shoulders, just like specimens. It was nailed so hard that it could not move. When they saw Sean, these seriously injured people struggled in unison, and hoarsely said, "Leave us alone, take the coolant away." Sean is very clear about the priorities of the situation. He can't save these wounded now, and if he can't restore the left engine to run as soon as possible, the lives of everyone on the Silver will be in danger. So Sean stepped forward without any trace, deftly bypassing the criss-crossing metal pipes, avoiding short-circuited wires and occasional sparks, and came to the coolant tank in a few steps. The boxy storage tank was very heavy, and Sean felt it was extremely difficult to lift it up with both hands. This was a heavy object that required two strong men to lift it. But now, looking at the heavy casualties of the crew members around him, Sean knew that he could only rely on himself. The Jedi apprentice exhaled lightly, causing the ubiquitous force to flow in his body, strengthening this flesh and blood body. This is the force technique that Sean has mastered since he was a child. It is unpretentious, but very practical. As the strength of his body increased greatly, the heavy storage tank became lighter. Sean raised his arms, carried the storage tank on his shoulders, and then stepped forward. The speed was actually a bit faster than when he was barehanded. However, at this moment, on the side of the passage, a tightly closed door suddenly opened, and a woman in a long apricot dress ran out of it in a panic. "Excuse me." Before the words were finished, a high-voltage wire flickering on the top of the door swayed down due to the vibration of the door opening, like a hunting boar electric snake, aimed at the woman's head and neck and bit it. In an instant, Sean only felt that the flow of time seemed to slow down. The Jedi apprentice seemed to have seen the woman being hit by the wire, turning her whole body into charcoal, but he didn't have time to stop it. The wire fell too fast, and he was at least 5 meters away from the woman. Even if he didn't carry a heavy storage tank on his shoulders, it was impossible for him to cross this distance in an instant and rush to the woman's side. At the critical moment, Sean freed up a hand and reached forward. As a result, the falling electric wire was like a 7-inch poisonous snake caught by someone, and it froze in midair in an instant. Although Sean himself couldn't keep up, the force is everywhere. It's just that, while using the force to strengthen the body, carry the storage tank on his back, and at the same time use the force to hold the high-voltage wires through the air, this also makes Xiaoan feel a little unsustainable. However, the woman was frightened by the tragic scene in the passage, and she was stunned in place. The Jedi apprentice gritted his teeth tightly and swung his arm downward with all his strength. The high-voltage wire was thrown aside and hit the wall of the passage heavily, causing an astonishing electric spark to burst out immediately. The flying sparks almost scorched the corner of the woman's skirt, and the sudden burst of high temperature made the woman cry out in shock, but it finally brought her back to her senses. Sean gasped violently and shouted, "Go back quickly! The VIP room is the safest refuge, don't come out until the battle is over." The woman nodded immediately, followed Xiaoan's order without hesitation and returned to the guest room. Sean heaved a sigh of relief, and then he felt the blood vessels in his body swell and ache. This impending stimulation was also an extremely heavy burden for him. Fortunately, everything went well, and the woman turned the corner. The next question is, the scene where he used the force to grab the high-voltage wire just now, shouldn't have been exposed? Sean looked around cautiously. The camera in the channel had died a heroic sacrifice, and the crew members who fell in a pool of blood also fell into a coma. Except for the Good News lady, no one else should have seen that scene. And Ms. Good News probably wouldn't think of force, right? After all, in the Dry Galaxy, the Jedi and the Force are absolutely rare concepts, and the change of direction of the high-voltage wires can also be explained by other reasons. Of course, this was all wishful thinking, and she might have seen the truth long ago. Sean exhaled lightly, and temporarily put these chaotic thoughts out of his mind. Now is not the time to think about this. If the maintenance of the spacecraft is not completed as soon as possible, everyone will die in the asteroid belt, and it will be too late to say anything at that time. Fortunately, he did not encounter any episodes after that, and returned to the left engine cooling room not long after. With the precious coolant in place, the left engine quickly resumed operation under Sean's skillful hands and began to provide precious power for the silver. The Jedi apprentice stood outside the engine area, looking at the indicator light that had turned green. A symbol of normal operation, he was finally relieved. And this gentle green light seems to indicate a reversal of the situation. After going through the initial stage of high-pressure headwind, Silver began a difficult road to comeback. Although Xiaoan couldn't see the whole picture of the battle, even if he only judged it from the mechanic's perspective, the battle situation was obviously improving. At least the spaceship did not suffer serious damage such as the cooling chamber being punctured, and there was no need for mechanics to run around inside the spaceship. Obviously, those enemies who ambushed in the asteroid belt in advance still underestimated the combat capability of the Silver. Even if they had an absolute numerical advantage, they were still defeated in the end. About half an hour later, the warning lights in the spaceship turned from bloody red to orange, and Li Yu's voice was also heard on the radio. "Congratulations everyone, we won the battle." There was an indelible exhaustion in his voice. It was obvious that this comeback battle was not easy for Li Yu, so that he could no longer maintain his usual brisk tone. "Clean it up as soon as possible. It's time to save people and repair ships. Lao Peng, take your men and go outside to catch some prisoners. We can't just take this loss for granted." After speaking, Li Yu turned off the radio. The next moment, weak cheers came from all over the Silver. Chapter 66. When the cheers sounded, Sean also felt the tense muscles all over his body relax, and his legs felt weak for a while. But now is not the time to collapse and enjoy the victory. As a mechanic, the overtime hours have only just begun. After this encounter, the silver could be said to be covered in bruises, even riddled with holes. It cannot be repaired by mechanics and robots alone. Mechanics like them must shoulder the heavy responsibility to restore the spaceship to normal as soon as possible. Xiao En communicated with Chen Sanwan on the task assignment in the communicator, and got the task of handling the cabin passage. Thinking of the passage like a metal forest, he couldn't help but have a headache. But that kind of troublesome work, no one else can do it except him. Chen Sanwan shivered because of being too busy in the machine repair room, and basically lost the ability to work. However, when Sean returned to the cabin passage, he saw an unexpected figure there. The apricot yellow long skirt, the black and white veil, and the meticulous stance, it is the good news lady. Seeing her, the flashy scene from before appeared again in Sean's mind. Different from the slightly frightened posture at that time, she has recovered her composure at this time. When she stood quietly in front of the cabin door, her calm and elegant temperament formed an extremely sharp contrast with the mess around her. After experiencing the danger, the woman followed Xiao En's instructions and honestly hid in the cabin. Fortunately, the metal flow that pierced through the passageway of the cabin never reached her cabin. Of course, from another perspective, the strongest part of the silver is the VIP cabin, so Sean told her then that the VIP cabin is the safest refuge. If the place where the bullet was shot happened to be the VIP cabin, perhaps the silver could have been safe and sound. Chaotic thoughts lingered in Xiao En's mind for a moment, and then he greeted generously, "Honorable client, please don't worry about the battle situation, we have already won." The woman turned her head to look at Sean, and said softly, "Thank you for saving me earlier." Sean's heart skipped a beat, realizing that the woman really noticed the unnatural change of direction of the high-voltage wire. So he chose to play dumb without hesitation, "Haha, I'm saving everyone. If the engine can't resume running, all of us will not be spared. Thank you, and I should only thank those brothers who were seriously injured in moving the storage tank, they paid much more than me." The woman nodded slightly, as if accepting Xiao En's explanation. "Also, there is something I would like to ask you to do." Xiao En was taken aback when he heard the words, the topic changed so quickly. "Did you just fool around about the wires? Is the other party really naive and easy to trust others, or is it that she doesn't like to accept the grace of saving lives? So just fool around if you can?" However, Sean himself did not attempt to reciprocate, and the other party's reaction was as he wished. On the other hand, it is also a good opportunity for a woman to ask for him, and Sean happens to have a lot of questions he wants to ask. So Sean immediately put on a business-like smile, "I'm happy to help you. Please open the lid for me, please," the woman said, and handed over a square metal box. Sean took it, feeling light and empty in his hand, but the lid of the box was fastened tightly without leaving a single gap. There are handles on both sides of the lid, and the rough and heavy handles are not commensurate with the lightness of the box body, so that when Xiao En holds the box, he only feels a little top-heavy. Sean hugged the box with one hand, grabbed the handle with the other, and stretched it upward, but the lid of the box didn't move at all, as if it was welded dead. Sean was a little curious. His effort at this time has far surpassed the average adult male, but he still couldn't open the lid of the box. What the hell is this good news lady's box for? While thinking about it, Sean continued to increase his strength. The strength of the physical body is limited, but as long as he uses the force. Click! Just when Xiao En raised his grip strength to an extraordinary level, the metal grip in his hand suddenly cracked under the weight. Sean let go of his hand in amazement, only to see a few pieces of shattered metal sticking to his palm. The seemingly heavy grip was actually just covered with a layer of metal shell, and a very fine circuit structure was hidden in it. Xiao En was puzzled, so this is not a box cover that can perform miracles with great force? Did I use too much force and broke the lid instead? Well, why didn't she say it earlier? Could it be that she was fishing on purpose? It's a pity that before Sean had time to see clearly, the client lady took a step forward and hugged the box back. Sorry, there seems to be something wrong with this box. Seeing the woman's eagerness, Xiao En was puzzled, but he handed the box back to the other party and said, Sorry, I didn't know it has a special structure. It's okay, I should make it clear in advance. If necessary, I can help unlock the electronic lock. No need. The woman's voice suddenly became decisive. Sean was taken aback for a moment, but he didn't insist anymore, and smiled and said, Then come to me if you need it. Well, thank you very much. When Sean returned to work, he realized that he had completely missed the opportunity to continue the conversation with the woman and failed to get more information from her. Probably the whole battle really made him dizzy. However, Sean reflected on the conversation, and felt that after he crushed the grip, the woman had no interest in continuing the conversation at all. She took back the metal box and turned back to the cabin with a very decisive attitude. So, everything is the fault of Dolly performing miracles. Xiao En muttered to himself with a wry smile, and then pulled out the broken metal pipe that was inserted horizontally on the passage wall. Forget it, there is still half of the voyage, let's find a chance to talk later. At worst, ask Li Yu for help. He was the one who led the matter. And just as Sean paralyzed himself with work, the client lady also returned to the room, letting out a helpless sigh and murmured vaguely to herself. Isn't it him? I thought it would be okay if it was him. Maybe I really thought too much. But in this way, there is only one clue left, but I can't contact the female suspect at all. While talking, the woman tapped the metal box on the table lightly. Her fingers gently stroked the handle of the broken box lid, but she didn't try to lift it off. Because before this, she had tried too many times and changed too many methods, but none of them worked. Now there is only one possibility left, a possibility that she herself cannot verify anyway. The only clues were two people, and one of them had been ruled out just now. Suddenly, a blue light flashed in front of the woman's eyes, and Li Yu's projection suddenly appeared on the desk. The woman was startled. Li Yu. Sorry to bother you. The captain of the Silver, who had just commanded a fierce battle, still looked exhausted at this moment, and he was lying on the seat half sitting and half lying in the projection. Miss, what's the result of the trial just now? The woman returned to her previous meticulous attitude, but she had no interest in answering Li Yu's question at all. It seems that the result is not very good, so what are you going to do next? Find another clue person to try your luck? That will be very troublesome, after all, even I don't know anything about the news over there. But I can introduce you to a very powerful intelligence dealer. Enough, this matter has nothing to do with you. Li Yu sighed, is there no need to deceive yourself? I found that thing out of the manor, so I have the right to know, right? Oh, by the way, that kid was also brought out of the manor by me. You used that thing to test he and I should have double the right to know. The right to know is not included in the agreement, the woman said. Besides the agreement, there is still friendship between us. Bian and the Nan family have been partners for many years. Thanks to the help of the Nan family, the deserted area can be so vibrant. For this kindness, we always think about it. Able to reciprocate. The woman's tone turned slightly colder. Thanks to Bai Yun's activity, the Nan family has been criticized in the boardroom, hasn't it? Li Yu said, the four major families, who doesn't have an agent who does dirty work? Didn't they come forward to collect the Xianhuang blood of Zirun medicine? The smuggling business of Bai He freight is also distributed to Shall the Huts run the business? Whose buttocks are clean? Of course, if you really don't like it, miss, we can restrain ourselves and recuperate during this period of time. I just don't know how such unilateral restraint can be achieved. How useful is it? That manor was your father's favorite holiday manor, but the inheritance inside requires you to hire outsiders to get it. The woman showed a bit of anxiety. That's enough, you don't need to be too talkative or fussy about the Nan family's affairs. You just need to send me to Shijing according to the entrustment agreement. Li Yu said, business? That's okay, I just have a business problem and I want to ask for proof. Miss, what happened to the ambush just now? This route was chosen by you, and we also set out. I gave up my route because of my trust in you, but the result seems to be a self-inflicted trap. If luck is a little bit worse, all of us will be buried here. This topic made Li Yu undoubtedly take the initiative. The woman was silent for a long time, then sighed, if you need compensation. No, I don't need any compensation, I just need the truth. It just so happens that Lao Peng has already captured a prisoner. Why don't we ask together later? The woman hesitated for a moment, then nodded slightly, okay. Chapter 67. The finishing work on the Silver lasted for quite a while, whether it was repairing the riddled spaceship or rescuing the injured crew members, the people on board were in a hurry. Sean was busy until the extra meal time, and finally had time to sit down in the dining room, listen to the bragging of the celebrating crew members, and then understand the whole picture of the battle. In a word, this is a Jedi comeback from death to life. By the time the Silver's sensor detected the enemy, the spacecraft was already in a desperate situation. More than 30 large and small fighters were ambushing around the asteroid belt, blocking all the escape routes of the Silver. These ambushers cleverly used the intricate environment of the asteroid belt to hide their existence. If Bai, who was on duty in the cockpit, had not been unusually sensitive, I am afraid that the Bian would not realize that he had encountered it until the enemy opened fire. Ambush. But Bai's early warning can only win an extremely limited time. Facing the desperate situation, Li Yu immediately made a judgment that was almost suicidal. He ordered the Bian to aim at the area where the enemy's strength was strongest, and charged in a straight line regardless of everything. The crew trusted Li Yu without reservation, and executed his suicide order perfectly. During the charge, the Silver was baptized by crazy firepower, and the ship was almost destroyed on the spot. Fortunately, its performance and crew quality were worthy of the name of Silver. In a burst of flames, the Silver shuttled out precariously, and concentrated all the firepower on the spaceship on one point. A small fighter jet that seemed inconspicuous. The heavy weapons on the Silver had a crushing performance advantage, and instantly wiped out that small fighter plane. Although the price was that the Silver was almost pierced through the entire cabin passage, and the flanks were severely damaged. Judging from the entire battle situation, the Silver undoubtedly suffered a great loss. It almost sacrificed more than one-third of the performance of the spaceship, but only replaced an insignificant small fighter. The remaining enemies were enough to crush the badly wounded Silver. But to everyone's disbelief, the situation of the battle was completely reversed at this moment. Actually, I didn't figure out what was going on. At the dining table, a slightly drunk artilleryman shook his head and said, "I just followed what Boss Li said, pouring all the firepower in the laser cannon on that unremarkable fighter plane, blowing it into a ball of fireworks, and then we won." The radar observer sitting next to the artilleryman added, "It is indeed unbelievable." After that fighter plane was destroyed, the enemy was completely reduced to a mob. More than one-third of the fighter planes turned around and fled on the spot, and the rest of the fighter planes also died. It starts to go its own way, even contradicts itself, and it becomes totally insignificant. The artilleryman happily drank a new bottle of alcoholic beverage, and said, "So there is no suspense in the rest of the battle. What I have to do is to blow up every locked enemy into fireworks. Although there are many enemies, they are only like a target in training." The quality inspector in the cargo hold said, obviously that small fighter plane carried the leader of the enemy. He wanted to disguise himself as an unknown soldier, but he still couldn't hide it from Boss Li. The observer retorted, "Actually, this doesn't make sense. Judging from the model of the enemy's spaceship, they should be pirates. Mostly Suzaku. These mobs have long been accustomed to chaos and disorder. Another interim replacement will also be quickly selected. Who knows, we won anyway." The artilleryman didn't care much about the truth. The observer, however, was itching to find out the truth. He turned his head and saw a tall and burly man walking into the restaurant with his head scratched. His eyes lit up and he greeted him, "Brother Peng, sit here." The man surnamed Peng was a little puzzled, but he sat down as he said, and greeted everyone at the table one by one. But before he picked up the chopsticks to eat, he was stopped by the observer and asked, "Brother Peng, what's the result of the interrogation?" "What interrogation result? Didn't you go outside to catch him alive?" The man surnamed Peng nodded, "Yes, but I will return after handing over the person to Boss Li. Anyway, the results of the interrogation will be announced, so I am not in a hurry to watch the live action." The observer was disappointed, "Brother Peng, you really have no curiosity about life. What do you want to be so curious about? I'm not smart, so it's useless to be curious." Brother Peng is really temperamental. The man surnamed Peng scratched his head, and Boss Li didn't seem to want other people to watch the interrogation. "He didn't keep me when I left. I guess the interrogation method will be more cruel. I'm afraid I won't learn it well." The fireman interrupted, "The more cruel the better. Damn, those Hut bastards beat the Silver to pieces, and the brothers also suffered a lot of casualties, and now Lao Zhang is still soaking in the Bacta liquid." The man surnamed Peng said indifferently, "Anyway, Boss Li doesn't want to be seen by others, so let's just wait for the result with peace of mind." The observer said helplessly, Okay, wait for the result with peace of mind." When Xiaoan heard this, he had a decision in his heart. He didn't want to sit and wait for the result. Since he knew that Li Yu was interrogating the prisoners in the hangar, he just went to listen in. Xiaoan then put down his chopsticks and asked the man surnamed Peng, "Brother Peng, how is the damage on the hangar?" The man surnamed Peng replied, "It's a bit miserable, only slightly better than the engine area." Before he finished speaking, Shan rushed over and said, "Then I'll go over and have a look, anyway, I'm free after eating." The artilleryman was surprised, "Hey, so hard-working?" I said, "Although you owe money to Boss Li, there is no need to push yourself so hard. Look how many years Huang Xuan has been a digital person, and he is still laughing all day long. Like an idiot. Geng Qian, who exploded your mother, how dare you arrange me?" Shan sighed, put the noise behind him, put down the dinner plate, picked up the toolbox, and rushed straight to the seriously damaged hangar like a dedicated mechanic. Not long after, he came outside the closed door of the hangar, and at this time, Li Yu's interrogation had just begun. In this small and compact hangar, 2 small fighter planes were parked crookedly. Under the slightly broken wings stood the captain of the Silver, Li Yu, and his assistant, Bai. The shadows cast by the wings enveloped them, setting off the silhouettes of 2 slightly hideous figures. On the other side, 3 ragged pirates with bruised noses and swollen faces were kneeling on the ground with their hands bound. The lights on the top of the hangar were turned on, making the 3 of them pale. In the shadows, Li Yu pointed to a thin man on the far left, and asked, "First question, who is the person who ordered you to ambush?" The skinny man giggled, "It's your ancestor." As soon as the words fell, a crimson energy beam pierced his forehead. Li Yu pointed the blaster in his hand at the prisoner in the middle, "Next is you, who is the person who instructed you to ambush?" The expression of the second person froze, he didn't expect Li Yu to strike so decisively and viciously. "If you disagree, you will be killed." Didn't he want to interrogate prisoners of war? What is the interrogation after everyone has been beaten to death? However, the moment of astonishment cost him his life. Li Yu fired again without mercy, killing the second person on the spot, and then pointed the gun at the third person. This time, Li Yu didn't even ask a question. The third person was finally sober, and realized that his life and death were tied by a thread, so he hurriedly said, "Master Feng Chu summoned us." Before the words were finished, a wrench flew out from the shadow under the wing, and hit the prisoner of war on the shoulder, knocking him to the ground, and was so painful that he couldn't speak. Li Yu was so angry that he cursed, "Feng, your whole family. A group of savages who can't take a bath once a week, where did they get such a nondescript title? Is it disgusting?" The prisoner of war who was knocked down quickly changed his words, "He Saner summoned the manpower. He is our military advisor, and the bosses usually listen to him." Chapter 68. After hearing the prisoner's confession, Li Yu turned to look at his assistant. Bai quickly found the person's information from the database. He Saner, whose real name is He Shan, is a native of Qin, a farmer. At the age of 17, he escaped from his hometown due to an accidental injury. After 3 years, he was reduced to a pirate. In less than 5 years, he replaced the original organization leader and became Sozaku, a member of the alliance, and then at the age of 30, he became a new generation military advisor of Sozaku. He is scheming, insidious and vicious, and enjoys high prestige in the pirate organization. He has fought against us twice in the past. In the Oasis dockyard of Zhen Star, he conspired to kill our informant Yu Chong, and in the floating station of Li, his confidants were killed by the Red Apricot Squad, and El Yunan even knocked off an arm and a leg. Li Yu suddenly realized, and said, "Ah, it turned out to be him, and I have an impression. But I remember that he is not very charismatic, and he can persuade those useless people to come and stop me? It is unlikely." Var. As he said that, Li Yu aimed his gun at the only remaining prisoners of war. "So, what is the truth?" The prisoner was stunned for a moment, and quickly defended, "He Sana really summoned the people, our boss brought people here only after listening to He Saner's words." Li Yu said, "It's a joke, He Saner was killed by Bai Yin, and he has no prestige. How much water has entered your boss's mind to believe his words and target us? But... Forget it, wasting time." Li Yu shook his head, and shot him in the head again. The next moment, under the other wing of the fighter plane, a hidden woman suddenly couldn't help but said, "There's no need to kill him, right? He obviously doesn't know anything about the matter. If you don't know anything, you shouldn't die." Li Yu said coldly. The people on board reacted fairly alertly to this ambush. Ji Chao, the administrator on duty, was killed, and Wu Fan, who was escorting the coolant, could not be rescued. Only 2 people were killed in battle, and the number of enemies you wiped out was more than 10 times that. Li Yu smiled lightly, but there was no joy in the laughter. Miss, to your Nan family, is human life just a number? If it's your brothers and sisters, oh, I'm sorry that this kind of formulation is to you. I'm afraid it's hard to empathize with this kind of only child. If your father is killed, do you have to calculate and exchange numbers with the enemy? The woman was furious for a moment, but she was speechless. Li Yu said again, everyone on the silver, and even everyone in the Silver Knights, are my brothers and sisters. Well, some seniors should be regarded as uncles and aunts. Incomparably precious. The so-called incomparably precious means that in order to avenge them, even if I kill 1,000 times or 10,000 times as many enemies, I will not hesitate. The woman couldn't help but said, this kind of excessive cruelty. Before finishing speaking, Li Yu interrupted, excessive cruelty can best protect my relatives. The Silver Knights have never been good people, and those meek civilized codes have never protected us. Our hometown is called Desolate District, we have to deal with such bastards like Suzaku and Qinglong every day. And the way of survival of the bastards is that the weak eat the strong, you die. The woman was not persuaded, but... to be honest, I really hate dealing with you pampered people. As for you, no matter good or evil, you always use your own values to judge others condescendingly. The sense of superiority stinks. For a while, Silver refused to accept it. All good people are because good people are too difficult to serve. If you have to come, just keep your mouth shut and talk less about your previous experience in the civilized world, no one cares about us. Of course, some people later said that this kind of rule is a bit like a psychological shadow, so we changed it to don't ask the past between members, which sounds much more gentle. Okay, enough nonsense miss, do you have anything else to add? The woman finally had nothing to say and shook her head. At the same time, Shan, who was listening outside the hangar door, was already feeling turbulent. Nan Wu, that good news lady is Nan Wu. Nan Heli's only daughter. Shan saw a photo of Nan Wu in the manner of DUI 9527, but Nan Wu in the photo was only in his early tens, and his eyebrows had not yet opened, so naturally he couldn't get in touch with the slim woman in front of him with a veil covering her face stand up. But she is Nan Wu after all. Before Xiaoan and Master entered the Qian Galaxy, Nan Wu's contact priority was very high in the preliminary plan. After Nan Heli's death, she was the #1 successor of Nanming Capital, and the preparatory director of Qunkan Group. Although she was young, she was already an important figure in the Qian Galaxy. And after experiencing a series of changes, Nan Wu's status in Xiaoan's heart has been further improved, because she may still be an insider of the Manor incident. From Li Yu's conversation, it is not difficult to see that Nan Wu and Bian are not the first cooperation. Although the two sides have friction, they also have a tacit understanding. So, did Nan Wu know about Li Yu going to DUI 9527 before? If they knew, the problem would be, why did the dignified daughter of the Nan family hire a group of pirates to attack her manor and kill her employees? The head maid of the manor, Li Qiang, was Nan Wu's personal maid and best friend in her childhood, but she almost died at the hands of pirates. Could it be that Nan Wu did it deliberately? In addition, did she know about the ambush in Shijing Tavern, and even said, how much did she know about Nan Heli's death? These questions made Shan wish he could open the door of the hangar immediately, rush in and ask him all the questions. But the impulse only lasted for a moment. Xiaoan is very clear that now is not a good time for him to come forward to ask questions, not to mention that Nan Wu has no reason to be open and honest with a stranger like him. Even Li Yu, who just opened his heart to talk about his own people not long ago, may not trust him. Also very limited. Otherwise, why not ask the past? Therefore, although the conversation in the hangar could be transmitted, and Xiaoan could hear it clearly outside the door of the hangar was never opened. This was obviously Li Yu's attitude towards Xiaoan. The so-called don't ask about the past among members means to ask less questions so that everyone can seek common ground while reserving differences. Listen to what I told you, and don't inquire about what I didn't tell you. It's not easy to be a human being if you don't know much. In this regard, Shan is not incomprehensible. Many of BN's styles run counter to the ideas advocated by the civilized world, and Shan feels the same way after joining the Red Apricot Squad. This organization is united, loving, and full of vitality, but its ruthlessness when facing the enemy is insulated from the word civilization, and it is even more incompatible with the philosophy believed by the Jedi. And this is one of the reasons why Shan has not disclosed his identity for a long time. Li Yu emphasized to Shan several times that Bai Yin would not ask about his past. How could Shan not understand the implication? So at this time, let's maintain the tacit understanding between each other for the time being. Relying on Li Yu, Xiao En has already approached the truth step by step, which is far better than fighting alone in the galaxy. And at this moment, a new voice came from the hangar. Chapter 69. In the hangar, after Li Yu comforted Nan Wu, who was overflowing with humanity, he continued his interrogation. Okay, now that the gossip is over, let's continue. While Li Yu was speaking, his assistant Bai opened a large metal box not far away, and poured out 3 captives who were rolling around on the ground like unloading. Okay, a new round of interrogation begins. Li Yu said, did all of you hear the conversation just now? Then I won't talk nonsense, let's start with the one on the far left. As he spoke, he aimed his gun at the captive's head again. This time, the prisoner confessed very happily, this time Sozako was entrusted to act. Li Yu nodded, well, although it's nonsense, but at least we've gotten to the point, let's continue. The prisoner said, the leader is indeed He Saner, but He Saner is only following orders, and someone else is actually in charge. This time the ambush was also in charge of the formation and command. Everything went smoothly at first. It's just that I don't know why there's no sound all of a sudden. Li Yu said, because I was the first to kill him. It's good that he hid too deeply, but he was very conspicuous. It was like shouting, I am behind the scenes, come and hit me. And once he died, as expected, you were beaten back to your original shape. I knew that those rotten people in Sozako would have the guts to ambush me. It must be instigated and organized by outsiders, so if the outsiders are eliminated, everything will be resolved. People. The captives were taken aback when they heard the words, never expecting that the ambush they thought was perfect was doomed from the very beginning. At this moment, when they thought of Bian's illustrious reputation, they couldn't help but become more terrified. Therefore, there is no scruple in explaining the problem. It is said that that person paid a lot of money to call us into action. In addition, he is also responsible for the route planning and personnel arrangement of the entire operation. Li Yu interrupted, personnel arrangements too? He also personally arranges your people. The prisoner replied, I don't know the specific details, but it is said that he asked all the bosses for a list, and carefully asked about the situation of each team, and then made this arrangement. Li Yu asked, what do you think of his arrangement? The prisoner said, not bad, it's not bad. Although the formation of troops is a bit rigid, it is indeed clever and rigorous. If he hadn't died first, maybe. Li Yu added, maybe we are the ones who died. No, I dare not. Why don't you dare? If he can really survive the first wave, the silver number will indeed be very dangerous. But that person obviously has no practical experience. I can see where the formation is located. He disguised himself as an inconspicuous small fighter plane, but he didn't expect how conspicuous a small fighter plane surrounded by several heavy warships would be. When Li Yu said this, he turned his gaze to the client who was listening on the sidelines. In short, the clues have been collected. This group of pirates were hired by someone who was a standard outsider, and most of them came from a famous family. That's why he was able to deter Sozako and make them willing to be treated as use it as a chess piece, instead of directly killing people and stealing goods, to earn a quick sum of money. Besides, that person must do everything by himself. He obviously came from a good background, but he even had to do the dirty work himself. Unfortunately, it was because of this that he must do everything by himself in the end. Even if he is remotely controlled, our situation is much more difficult. Miss. Through the above clues, can you figure out who is behind the scenes? Nan Wu's face was gloomy at this moment, and he gritted his teeth and said, I see, I will definitely give you an explanation. Li Yu said, it is to give yourself an explanation. The target of this ambush is you in the final analysis, and Arbian is just passing by. I know. Really? Li Yu pressed harder and harder, you chose this remote route to avoid disaster, but in the end, not only could you not avoid it, but you even became a self-inflicted trap. I know that there is a traitor around me. Even the person you killed first may be my most trusted confidant and my father's former secretary Nan Zhu. Are you satisfied? Li Yu smiled and said, it's still the same sentence, the key is whether you are satisfied with the answer, miss. The woman said, Nan Zhu has been with my father for more than 20 years, and he is my father's right-hand man. From the moment I can remember, he has been an indispensable member of the family. After my father died, he was also the only one I trusted without reservation. Man, so do you think I'm happy with this answer? Li Yu said, Miss, you are so angry, do you want me to say condolences to you? Or should I congratulate you for pulling out the most dangerous nail around you? Nan Wei was silent for a while, and said, I'm sorry, I just find it hard to accept this fact. Uncle Zai's who? Nan Zai's who, why did he betray me? And he even used such vicious means. Li Yu said, your father and daughter have bullied him before and made him hold a grudge. Nonsense. Nan Wei said angrily, my father treats him like his own brother. I grew up calling him Uncle Zaijo. Both public and private, our family has nothing to do to him. Li Yu asked again, so someone can give him greater benefits. Nan Wei smiled wryly and said, he is already an executive of Nanming Capital, and his net worth is even several times richer than that of me, who has not yet inherited the inheritance of my father's generation. Who else in the galaxy can give him the benefits? Moreover, it's nothing more than seeking money, but killing one's life is a very serious taboo. Li Yu said, I've heard about this. Even if you dignitaries conspire to harm each other, it won't hurt the lives of high-level members. Nan Wei said, yes, this is an important bottom line for maintaining the internal stability of the Quncan group, and it is jointly certified by the elder councils of the 4 major families. So how did your father die? Li Yu suddenly asked a sharp question. Nan Wei said, I don't know, that's why I entrust you to go to the manor to collect evidence, but in the end I got a box that no one can open. Yes, the structure of the box seems simple, but as long as it is not opened according to the rules, it will immediately self-destruct. Hey? Have you tried driving it? Li Yu coughed quickly, no, I'm just talking casually, how could we tamper with the client's things? Nan Wei snorted coldly, apparently not believing a single word of this nonsense. But now is not the time to care. Li Yu also changed the subject in a slightly embarrassed way, okay, this interrogation will end here. Before he finished speaking, he heard an urgent voice from the side. Etc. A prisoner who has not been interrogated suddenly burst out with a strong desire to survive, and interrupted Li Yu's words regardless of his life. Seeing that Li Yu's interrogation session was about to end, he immediately realized a problem, the interrogation is over, and the lives of these prisoners of war may also end. Those who have confessed their problems may still have a chance of survival. Bai Yin is cruel to the enemy, but it will not even kill the captives who have confessed their problems. The problem now is that some people don't even have the chance to explain their problems. Of the second batch of 3 prisoners of war, there were still 2 who hadn't had time to speak. So if you want to survive now, you must explain the problem. Even if Li Yu doesn't ask, he still has to explain. Well, Boss Li, I have. Before the words fell, Li Yu's wrench came through the air. Boss Li's name is also yours. Ancestor, ancestor. The prisoner who was hit in the chest endured the pain to fight for his life, I have important information to tell. Li Yu clicked his tongue again and again, the desire to survive is very strong, let me tell you, I will let you go if it is valuable. Chapter 70. Hearing Li Yu let go, the prisoner was overjoyed, but turned his eyes to the shadows under the other wing, and asked, that one over there should be the eldest lady of the Nan family, right? We were hired to harass Quncan at DUI 9527 before. The security guest is also you, right? As soon as these words came out, Nan Wei couldn't help but said, you. Li Yu threw out another wrench, and it hit Nan Wei's feet just right, scaring her so much that she couldn't speak anymore. Li Yu sighed, and complained to his assistant, this is the second reason why I hate high-class people. They always turn into laser brains inadvertently. Doesn't talking to you at this time mean that you are not calling yourself? You contacted Sozaku before, are you using your real identity? Only then did Nan Wei say embarrassingly, no. Of course you can't use your real identity. The majestic Miss Nan family hired pirates to attack the regular army of Quncan security. If this kind of news spreads, you can wait to spend the rest of your life in prison. However, for the sake of years of cooperation, let me help the eldest miss kill her. The prisoner who was threatened to be silenced turned pale with shock, this matter is no longer a secret. Almost everyone in the Sozaku organization knows about it. It's useless to kill me. Li Yu asked, everyone knows about it. Miss, how did you keep it secret last time? Did you use the alias Bei Qianzhou? Nan Weida said, I contacted Suzaku before. I used Uncle Zai's Hu. At that time, among the people I could trust, he was the only one who had channels to contact the pirates. If he came out to face me this time, of course he wouldn't keep it safe for me. What a secret! Li Yu said, it turns out that you also passed him last time. No wonder the group of pirates started doing evil when they arrived. The middleman is unreliable, and of course there will be problems in the execution of the mission. Nan Weida was very surprised, do evil? What do you mean? Li Yu was even more surprised, what do you mean? You don't know what Suzaku's people did in the manor. Nan Weida said, I really don't know, Nan Zai's who told me the whole story, he said everything went well, and you did bring the things back, so of course I believed it. After that incident, the Kyunkan group has blocked all official news channels, and even I don't know the inside story. The only unofficial news channel I have is Nan Zai's Who. When you gave me the things, you didn't say anything unnecessary to me. Li Yu said, even if I said it at the time, you may not believe me, miss. And your entrustment is only to let me go to the laboratory to pick up the goods, but you didn't say that we should collect information, and the information fee has to be calculated separately. How much more do you want? To be honest, it's really not much money. Li Yu sighed, based on B&S usual charging standard, we have already given you a very favorable discount, miss. After all, it is the business of the Nan family. It's a pity that miss you but not as bold as the seniors, after careful calculation for a long time, I only chose a discount package for newcomers. Nan Weida snorted lightly, obviously not wanting to start this topic. However, Li Yu refused to let go, if you had chosen a luxurious package at that time, I could have brought my brothers there to provide a one-stop service. There was no need to find mobs to serve as outposts to attract attention. Nan Weida bit her lip, at that time, the funds I could use were very limited. I didn't fully inherit my father's property. The only thing I could handle flexibly was some pocket money. I could only afford that price. In fact, if it weren't for you the asking price is too expensive, and I don't want to spend money to hire pirates to cooperate with you in fighting. Li Yu added, actually, on the other hand, you are worried that our Bian family is eating alone, and you want to find someone to restrain us. After looking around, you can only find scum like Suzaku, right? It doesn't matter, I understand, after all, things like mutual trust always have to be built on the basis of a long-running in. After finishing speaking, Li Yu looked at the prisoner who took the initiative to explain the problem. We're done gossiping here, you continue. The prisoner nodded quickly, actually, Hei Saner is at most half of the credit for us being able to recruit so many people this time. It is true that Nan Zai's who spent a lot of money. But there is another reason for us to come, to avenge our shame. Li Yu laughed and said, revenge? Why didn't I know that you still have a sense of shame? How many times have you been planted by the Silver Knights? The prisoner summoned up his rare courage to interrupt Li Yu's ridicule. We didn't come here for Bian, we came here for the eldest lady of the Nan family. It's true that us scumbags always suffer all kinds of things. Humiliation, those who care about their faces can no longer live, but there is only one thing that is our bottom line, Suzaku's money, no one can be greedy. Speaking of this, the prisoner couldn't help looking at Nan Weida who was in the shadows, and said with a sneer, even if the young miss of the Nan family is short of money, there is no need to default on the money we these scumbags have, right? This time even Li Yu was taken aback, arrears. The prisoner said, in the entrustment fee, the prepayment only accounts for 10%, and the remaining 90% is paid in 2 steps. We pay the process payment when we arrive at Dai 9527, and pay the balance after the task is completed. But from the process payment, the eldest lady is in arrears. For several days, when the brothers were looting in the manor, it was also because they couldn't get the money that they couldn't help but recover some losses by themselves. Hearing this, Li Yu couldn't help but frowned, you really didn't get the money at the time? Didn't your superiors fool you? The prisoner said, I know Boss Li. Ancestor, you have always looked down on us mobsters, but you think, the reason why we mobsters don't break up is that there are some rules that we have to abide by, among which the rule of dividing money is the biggest rule. Li Yu nodded. He actually knew about this a long time ago, but he didn't expect Suzaku to be owed the money. So, miss, what do you have to say? Nan Weida argued, I'm not in arrears. All the payments have already been prepared in the temporary account, and I have also sent the payment letter for the last 2 payments to the bank. The prisoner argued, but we did not receive the money. The bank account details, several leaders disclosed to all of us. Only the first advance payment was on time, and the second process payment was in arrears. For several days, as for the final payment, there is no sign of it. This is impossible. Nan Weo was also puzzled. Li Yu sighed, forget it, there's no need to quarrel over this kind of thing. Anyway, the team that Suzaku came to collect debts was also killed in pieces, so let's end the matter like this. Nan Weo was worried, this doesn't make sense, as long as there is my payment letter, there is no reason for the bank to default and not pay the money. Did your Nan family offend the bank? That was originally a bank under Nanming Capital. That is to say, you can't even control your own bank. Li Yu nodded without changing his expression, and then said to his assistant, "Bye, help me confirm whether the reward for this escort mission is in place." The assistant responded flatly, "The advance payment has been confirmed, but the process payment is overdue. In view of the current situation, I have doubts about the reliability of the process payment and the final payment." Nan Weo gritted her teeth and said, "Don't worry, even if I sell my private property, I won't default on your salary." Bai said, "I have doubts about the safety of Ms. Weo's private property." Nan Weo said angrily, "What do you want to say? Is my orthodox heir abandoned by the Nan family? Can't I even keep my private property?" Just as Bai was about to speak, Li Yu interrupted him. "Forget it, it's not that I haven't done a loss-making business, and I will find a way to recover the loss slowly in the future. There is no need to quarrel with the respected client. However, miss, I still have something to tell you, your situation is very serious now. Delicate, please be sure to choose someone you can trust. You don't need to remind me. That's good. I believe that Missy will be able to overcome the difficulties. Well, we are almost at our destination. I hope Missy's next journey will be smooth sailing." Nan Weo opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but in the end there was only a simple thank you. Chapter 71. The dilapidated silver, which had gone through fierce battles, finally arrived at the capital planet Kun of the Qian Galaxy, and landed in Shijing's port landing area. When the spaceship landed, it made a sound like a metal box full of parts falling to the ground, making the people on board worry that the spaceship would fall apart. Fortunately, the structure of the silver is very strong, even though many parts and broken armor pieces fell like raindrops on the landing, it still did not collapse completely. After that, the mechanic on board immediately contacted the staff at the port to carry out emergency comprehensive repairs on the spacecraft. As the captain, Li Yu personally disembarked and sent the distinguished guests away respectfully. When Nan Weo got off the spaceship, he was facing 5 luxury airships from the headquarters of Kyunkan Group, as well as some meticulous security personnel dressed in black. A middle-aged man in formal attire came first and read in a rigid voice, "Welcome Ms. Nan Weo to Shijing, we have already arranged accommodation for you." Nan Weo thought thoughtfully, "Ma'am? Just a lady? So you don't recognize my position in the group?" The middle-aged man said, "This meeting is precisely to discuss this issue. The group will strictly follow the regulations to ensure the legal rights of every member. Please don't worry, Ms. Nan Weo." "Well, I never expected it from the beginning, so I can't say I was worried." Nan Weo laughed, "The Nan family's creed has always been to fight for one's own expediency, and there has never been a legal right that falls from the sky." The middle-aged man lowered his head and remained silent. Nan Weo didn't waste time talking with him, and after boarding a flying boat, he galloped away into the distance. Shan watched the convoy gradually disappearing into the brilliance of the big city, and the memory of not long ago could not help but float in his heart. It was in this city that he and his master encountered the trap set by Kyunkan security. If the master hadn't been desperate in desperation, their master and apprentice would have already suffered an indelible reputation at this time, and the truth of Nan Heli's death would have made it even worse. Forever lost in a lie. Thinking of the director of Kyunkan security Xiao En still feels deep dread. The whole Shijing city is like a maze full of traps in his eyes, and Nan Weo is going to go deep into the maze alone now. There's no need to worry about her. Li Yu's voice suddenly came from behind. This is not her home game, but it's not her away game either. In any case, she is a member of the 4 major families. Xiao En retorted, her father is the leader of the Nan family, and his status is higher than hers. Didn't he die inexplicably? And she herself has just experienced a life and death crisis. Li Yu smiled and said, "The rebuttal is beautiful, indeed, we may see the news of Nan Wu's death on the news program in a few days. Maybe he died of a traffic accident, maybe he died of a heart attack, maybe she died exactly like her father, and it can be regarded as a standard female inheritance from her father. Sean couldn't help asking, speaking so lightly. You don't have any feelings for her, or friendship? Li Yu couldn't help laughing. If there is friendship, Suzaku would not have participated in the previous actions at DUI 9527. At that time, Nan Wu couldn't trust us, so why should we trust her? What if we were waiting for us in DUI 9527? What about a reorganized planetary defense fleet from Kyunkan Security? Xiao En couldn't help but be dumbfounded when he heard the words. Thanks to Li Yu's statement on the Bian, it seemed that he and the Nan family had a close relationship, but in the end, he and Nan Wu were actually testing each other and calculating each other. Li Yu said, the Nan family has indeed provided shelter for the Silver Knights in many ways. The deserted area we rely on for survival can also be regarded as the Nan family's industry in essence, but everyone is not the same after all. Even in a company, how could it be possible that the high-ranking boss and the poor employees at the bottom do not have intrigues? Sean asked, so, to you, is Nan Heli a good boss? Li Yu smiled and said, that's right, otherwise I wouldn't need to provide the eldest lady with a preferential package. Then, regarding Nan Heli's death, I don't know. Li Yu said firmly, even Nan Wu, his own daughter, doesn't know much about this matter, let alone an outsider like me. If you want to find out the truth, it's better to find another way. My way won't work. Xiao En immediately became alert when he heard the words, I didn't mean that. Li Yu said, don't make such a lame disguise. Anyone who is not blind can see your interest in the affairs of the Nan family. Everyone is actually very interested in the heavyweight news. In fact, although there are not many official reports, there are at least hundreds of millions of people talking about it in private, and various rumors are emerging in an endless stream, although I doubt that these rumors are themselves one of the means to cover up the truth. Sean asked again, what about you, are you interested? Li Yu said, of course there is, but it's only for interest. It would be great if I could learn the truth easily, but if I can't, I will choose to be confused. I am just the leader of the Silver Knights, a group of outlaws in the deserted area. The heads of the refugees are not the managers who preside over the law and order of the galaxy. I have no obligation to investigate the truth, let alone stand up and seek justice. Even though Nan Heli is a good boss from an emotional point of view, he is still just a boss. His death is not as important to me as anyone around me. A pet's death is more deserving of grief. Xiao En nodded slowly. Although he didn't think Li Yu had spoken the truth, he also understood Li Yu's position. In fact, we and the Nan family are essentially just a combination of interests. The Nan family needs us to do things that are inconvenient for them to do in person. And we also need the support from the Nan family that can be displayed officially. For example, you read what the Scene team did on DUI 4399 requires the power of the Nan family to suppress the consequences. Otherwise, no matter how devastated Ning Tao and the others are, it will not be the turn of civil organizations to uphold justice. Xiao En asked, then the head of the Nan family died unexpectedly, and Nan Wu, as the heir, obviously couldn't control the situation. What are you going to do? Li Yu said, what else can we do? Let's take one step at a time. If the eldest lady of the Nan family can successfully overcome the difficulties and inherit the family business of the Nan family, then of course everyone will be happy. Everyone will continue to do business as usual. We will continue to coexist with the Nan family for mutual benefit. If not, I can only sweep Nan Heli and Nan Wu into the dustbin of history, try to contact the new head of the Nan family, and try to continue the business. And if the situation develops to the worst point, for example, the new patriarch of the Nan family doesn't want to deal with people in the deserted area, or doesn't want to bear the burden of history on us, and plans to start a new stove and treat us as victims, then we can only die. It was the first time Xiao En heard such negative emotional venting from Li Yu, and he couldn't help saying curiously, this style of closing your eyes and waiting to die doesn't look like you at all. Li Yu said, who said you have to close your eyes and wait to die? When it really is a last resort, I will find a way to blow up the dome of the sky, and everyone will die together. This way, death is a happy death. Xiao En was surprised when he heard this, because Li Yu's tone of voice didn't sound like a joke at all. He seems to have mastered some method to blow up the headquarters of Kyunkan Group. And when he thought of the scene where the magnificent space station standing outside the atmosphere turned into countless fragments and fell to the ground, Sean felt horrified. That is undoubtedly a disaster that will cause tens of thousands of casualties. You. What's the matter? Li Yu said, if you really can't survive, there's nothing wrong with acting extreme, right? Sean took a deep breath, suppressed the emotions surging in his heart, and said, you made this extreme plan to avoid extreme situations, right? Li Yu said with a smile, it can also be said that as long as the Silver Knights really master the ability to perish with the Sky Dome, the people in the Sky Dome will not casually treat us as victims, and our situation will naturally be safer. But on the other hand, this kind of peace that can only be maintained by threats is quite unstable. Any disturbance may lead to a rapid deterioration of the situation. The so-called pre-plan refers to a plan that may be implemented, rather than just waiting to see it forever. A plan that will not be implemented. The day when the dome of the sky will fall may not come. Sean said silently in his heart, don't worry, that day will never come, and I will do everything possible to prevent such a disaster involving innocent people from happening. Li Yu said, I know that you must not approve of me in your heart, but it doesn't matter, there is no need to hide it like this. Even within the Silver Knights, there are many people who do not approve of me. Xiao En couldn't help asking after hearing the words, then how do you view these opposing voices? I like to watch them dislike me but treat me helplessly. Li Yu said, a qualified leader will never succumb to public opinion. Otherwise, why would people elect a leader? Wouldn't it be good to just set up a ballot box? A leader should be able to withstand the opposition of the people and do the right thing. Some awareness. Especially us outlaws who are active at the bottom of society, we must not expect the rules of the civilized world to protect us. Sean asked, then do you plan to let the Silver Knights stay at the step of outlaws forever? Li Yu asked back, can human beings live forever? Sean was stunned. Li Yu asked again, can the Galactic Republic eradicate all crimes? Sean shook his head, of course it couldn't be done. So, there are always things in the Milky Way that are beautiful but unattainable. Of course I hope that the Silver Knights can become aboveboard, but things in dreams can be thought of in dreams, and there is no need to bring them to the real level said. At least, before dreaming, I have to take care of the present. Compared with bringing the Silver Knights or even the entire deserted area back to civilization, the more important thing to me is, can Nan Weyu pay the final payment? Sean couldn't help but smile when he heard the words. Indeed, this is a more realistic problem. Li Yu added, it's the same for you. Compared with caring about the future of the Silver Knights and the truth about Nan Heli's death, it's better to care about those people who lived with you in the manor back then. Sean's smile instantly subsided, and his whole heart contracted. You have news? Li Yu said, no, just like Nan Weyu's final payment, there has been no news. Sean gasped for a long time before he calmed down the throbbing of his heart. He didn't blame Li Yu's teasing, because the other party ultimately talked about a sensitive topic openly and honestly, which is very precious to Xiao En. Only. Why did you suddenly say so much to me today? Li Yu said, you deserve it. When the silver was ambushed, if you hadn't run back and forth to help Chen Sanwan support the engine, we would all have died. So, no matter what you were before joining the Silver Knights, what identity, what position, who do you know, at least now, you have completely integrated into us and are our own family. There is no need to hide many things from our own family. After speaking, Li Yu patted Sean on the shoulder. In the future, the intelligence channels of the Silver Knights will do their best to help you collect information. If there is any development, I will notify you as soon as possible. Thank you. You're welcome. If you don't have any doubts now, go to work. The overall maintenance of the silver needs your activeness. Chapter 72. The silver was docked at the port for a whole day before it finally wobbled into the air and returned to the voyage. An encounter in the asteroid belt caused the silver to suffer such serious damage that when the spacecraft landed in the port staff thought it was space junk that had fallen. The emergency repair work also encountered many difficulties. First of all, Li Yu, who was supposed to be there to preside over the work, and his loyal helper who dismantled the stage, left their posts without authorization under the pretext of going to Shijing City to perform a confidential mission. Secondly, the structure of the silver is very special, which increases the difficulty of maintenance. This spaceship has undergone a deep transformation, and many places are very different from the conventional spaceship design in the dry galaxy. Therefore, when the maintenance company at the port saw the silver, they were even a little bit at a loss as to what to do. Then the main maintenance force can only be the own people on the silver, and the maintenance company can only provide some routine auxiliary services. However, Chen Sanwan, the mechanic who is most familiar with the silver, accidentally sprained his waist during the battle, and was bedridden, unable to work. Again, the maintenance budget is limited. This is actually a chronic disease of the Silver Knights. Although this organization is known for its high fees, even the dignified Miss Nan can only order the preferential package for newcomers. But at the same time, the expenses of the Silver Knights are also very huge, so Li Yu rarely has a lot of savings in his hands. And this time, the financial crisis of the employer, Nan Wu, has also been directly transmitted to the Silver Knights. There has been no news of the process payment and final payment of the escort mission. This made it impossible for the Silver Number to afford many spare parts during maintenance work, so it had to do everything possible to adapt them. The last point is that time is tight. It is not suitable for the Silver to stay in Kun for too long. The sooner the maintenance work is completed, the better. In fact, no matter how many shining points the Silver Knights have, it is still an extra-legal organization. In the eyes of many people, it is not fundamentally different from pirate organizations like Suzaku and Blue Dragon. Only with Sun, who is dominant in the Nan family, can the Silver Knights have a stable space to settle down. In other places, it is not impossible to be wanted by the local security department suddenly. In short, the maintenance work of the Silver is short of money, people, and time. The only solution is to let the crew use their subjective initiative to overcome objective difficulties, in short, work overtime. As Chen Sanwan's successor, Xiao En was duty-bound in this process. He almost supported most of the maintenance project with his own strength. During this day, he only felt that he was even worse than when he encountered the war. Busy, can't wait to become tens of thousands of people to deal with the intricate work. In the end, when Li Yu and Bai finally took the taxi and arrived belatedly, what they saw was a spaceship that was covered in stitches and was in a miserable state, but it was undoubtedly functioning normally. Compared with the lump of space junk a day ago, it's an earth-shaking change. And the biggest hero, Shan, has been paralyzed in bed like a heating rod with exhausted batteries. Fortunately, it was a good bed. In order to thank Shan for his contribution, the crew arranged for him to rest in the VIP cabin of the Silver, but the Jedi apprentice lay on the big bed in the VIP cabin, feeling exhausted and weak, wishing to fall asleep immediately, but the excessive fatigue, on the contrary, it makes people unable to fall asleep, and the taste is really painful. In this regard, Li Yu, who came to visit the doctor, was not hesitant to praise him. Haha, you are indeed a newcomer to the Knights. Lying on the bed where the eldest lady lay, feeling the lingering fragrance, you will suddenly become full of vigor and energy. I can't sleep anymore. Shan was not polite about this kind of vulgar teasing. Leader, don't forget that there is a fee for the maintenance project, thank you. As a member of the Red Apricot Squad, there is no reason to provide free services. Li Yu was also unambiguous. No problem, I will pay when the final payment of the eldest lady arrives. If you are in a hurry to ask for money, I can transfer the debt to you at a low price. Regarding this blatant act of creating triangular debts, Xiao En pondered for a moment and said, let El Yunan talk to you when I go back. Hey! Hearing El Yunan's name, Li Yu was also shocked. You don't have to be so cruel. Forget it, I'll give you a small bonus. I found the survivors on DUI 9527 in Shijing City. At this moment, Shan really lost all sleepiness. He struggled to get up. Really? Li Yu stretched out his hand and pressed Xiao En down. I shot it myself, of course it's true. Looking at this projection, do you still have an impression? While speaking, the assistant behind Li Yu had silently turned on the projection device on his arm, projecting a strong bald man with a tense face. Shan's gaze immediately locked onto the projection, and he couldn't look away. Of course he has an impression of that bald man. When DUI 9527's manor was under house arrest, this bald man was one of the security guards guarding the periphery of the manor. Because of the extraordinarily dazzling head shape, Shan was particularly impressed with him. Li Yu smiled, it's good to have an impression. He survived the chaotic war and returned to his hometown Shijing. He is currently working as a manager of an equipment manufacturing plant under the General Administration of Security, and his income is 5 years ago. More than twice as many times, and there is no need to risk his life to go on missions all over the galaxy. For this reason, his girlfriend, who has been in Cold War with him for many days, also agreed to his marriage proposal. Xiao En lost the point for a while. Did Li Yu want to say that this bald man was a blessing in disguise? But soon Xiao En realized the implication of Li Yu's words. There is no such thing as a blessing in disguise, and there must be some reason why this bald man can get such a generous treatment. Linked to his identity as a survivor, then the truth is ready to come out. He was silenced by his superiors. Li Yu said, "Yes, you are not allowed to tell anyone about what happened in the manor." Shan asked, "But you obviously have a way of getting him to talk, right?" Li Yu said, "Don't worry, there is no need for any vicious means to tell a person who has just started to live a happy life. I will pretend to be his boss, and he will know everything." What did he say? He said that he was stunned by the shock wave of the explosion shortly after the battle started. When he woke up, the pirates had retreated, and the manor was in a mess. Before he could figure out the situation, the troops from the General Security Bureau came to support. He rushed to the scene and took over everything. He was assigned to the hospital ship and lay down all the way back to Shijing. After recovering from his injury, he learned that he had been promoted to be the director of a small factory, and the future is bright. Xiao En felt disappointed. This is equivalent to saying nothing. Li Yu said, "Of course, this is just a superficial rhetoric. If he really doesn't know anything, why is Quncan Security offering such a generous treatment to seal his mouth? In fact, this set of rhetoric is just a disguise." The truth is, he guessed that those pirates were invited by the Nan family themselves. Chapter 73. For Shan's surprise, Li Yu patiently explained. "In fact, this is not surprising. Miss Nan Wu and her housekeeper are obviously very inexperienced in breaking the law and discipline, so there are countless flaws in their actions. As the parties involved, it is easy to find clues after calmly thinking about it. That manor was Nan Heli's most valued mansion during his lifetime. Because it is located in a chaotic asteroid belt, the security work is very strict. After Nan Heli's death, the manor was taken over by the General Security Bureau, and the security level was even higher. Floor, how can it be so easy to be successfully attacked by a group of mobs?" Shan fell into deep thought. In fact, he had doubts about this question before, but he never had time to think about it. Now it seems that the answer is really simple, rude and direct. Li Yu explained, "This is undoubtedly a huge scandal for the Nan family, and it will even shame the four major families that have been advancing and retreating together for thousands of years. Therefore, within the Quncan group, people can use this news to suppress the Nan family, but it must be kept absolutely secret from the outside world, and the common people must not know that members of the four major families will commit such insane behavior. That's why you sealed the client's mouth with generous treatment." Shan understood the logic, but he couldn't help but be disappointed. Because this is equivalent to not waiting for any new information. Li Yu smiled and said, "However, this is still just a disguise." Shan was convinced, "Can you tell the truth directly?" "Unfortunately, there is no truth, so I can only summarize the collected information for you. Back to this bald head, have you noticed that Quncan Security has made a very unreasonable judgment on him? If you want to keep it secret, in fact, Quncan Security has more affordable and safer means." Xiao En was stunned for a moment, realizing that Li Yu was talking about murder. Indeed, it is much more convenient and safer to kill people than to vacate a factory manager position. And after experiencing so many things in the Gan Galaxy, Xiao En doesn't think that with the style of the Quncan group, he can't do this kind of thing. In fact, when I was chatting with this bald man, I heard him mention a very interesting incident. There were about 20 to 30 security fighters who survived the manor at that time, but the only ones he can contact so far are insufficient 10 people. Of course, this doesn't mean anything in itself. The security guards don't have such close contact with each other. It's normal to lose contact after going through a storm. But after I asked carefully, most of the people who lost contact, there is one common denominator: when pirates attack, they mostly stay on the estate. Shan immediately thought of his teacher Mistima. So I have a guess that those people who lost contact got in touch with the real secret, so they were wiped out forever. And people like bald heads are smoke bombs that are released. People mistakenly think that the truth only stays at the level of the Nan family scandal." Shan thought for a while, and approved of this guess. In addition, the survivors of Quncan Security, at least there are clues such as bald heads on the surface. But the others disappeared strangely. "Remember those servants you saved when you fled?" Xiao En nodded. At that time, in order to save Li Qiang and others, he almost risked his life against 100. How could he forget it? So unfortunately, those people are all out of contact now. Shan asked, Even you can't find any clues. Yes, even I couldn't find any clues. But this is an important clue in itself, showing that the forces trying to hide the truth are unusually strong. Sean couldn't help but feel heavy. Don't worry too much. Li Yu comforted, loss of contact itself is not the worst outcome. As far as I know, when dealing with the issue of extermination, the Kyunkan group always likes to do everything right, like Nanheli announced the news of the death, so that everyone will never think about it. In comparison, the loss of contact is too ambiguous. Sean tentatively accepted this comfort, but a sense of urgency also emerged spontaneously. Perhaps losing contact is not the worst outcome, but it is not a good outcome anyway. Although he has considerable confidence in the ability of Master Mistima, he does not think that Master can single-handedly overthrow the entire universe group. But now it seems that the situation is even worse than expected. Not only can the Master not overthrow the opponent, he can't even escape. Thinking of this, Sean only felt a deep sense of powerlessness. Facing the behemoth that controls the entire galaxy, there is really little that a mere Jedi apprentice can do. And if you think rationally, you shouldn't be alone at this time. Sean asked, Captain, is there a way to send me out of the dry galaxy? Send out the dry galaxy? Li Yu raised his eyebrows, and said to Bai, help me take a look at the discounted ferry tickets for Baihe tour. How much does it cost to get to the nearest colonial star? Bai said, I don't think making low-level jokes at this time will help maintain your cynical personality. Li Yu, who was forcibly dismantled, drooped his shoulders helplessly, and said, forget it, let's just talk about it. I have investigated your situation in Shijing City this time. Sean tensed up slightly. Don't worry, it's not about your past. The rule of not asking about the past among members has always been valid. What I'm investigating is whether your name is on the wanted list. This list is only circulated within Kyunkan security, and it will not be announced to the public, but there is no doubt that the people on the list will not be able to move an inch in the galaxy. Sean asked, am I on the list? Of course there is, and the priority is very high, 2 levels higher than Ning Tao. It looks as if you are the real culprit who killed Nanheli. This joke wasn't funny at all. Xiao En's face darkened, and he asked again, so I can only sneak in? Theoretically yes, you can only smuggle if you want to leave the dry galaxy, but I strongly don't recommend you to do so. There are 2 reasons. First, you still owe me $1 million. You left, this is a bad debt. For the Silver Knights, which has already accumulated bad debts and is struggling financially, it will undoubtedly make things worse. Sean really admired Li Yu's mouth that could make jokes anytime and anywhere, and then quietly waited for Li Yu to say the second reason. Secondly, the risk of smuggling is too great, and the probability of success is less than 10%. Xiao En was puzzled, didn't Ning Tao successfully smuggle? As I said, your priority on the most wanted list is 2 levels higher than Ning Tao's, so he can leave, but you cannot. After that, Li Yu patiently explained, the Gan Galaxy is a highly conservative and closed galaxy. Even the holographic network of the Galactic Republic has to go through a round of information screening at the repeater level. The Kyunkan group is naturally more sensitive to the flow of personnel across the galaxy. It is strictly guarded against. And smuggling, whether it is from the inside out or vice versa, is a first-class taboo. Remember the smuggler Kong Zhang I mentioned earlier? Sean nodded, deeply impressed by the Hut man who gave him the name of Jian Kun. Ning Tao's escape was successfully completed by Li Yu contacting Kong Zhang with the latter's assistance. In fact, Hut has always been a partner of the Kyunkan group. His smuggling business directly serves the Baihe group of the 4 major families, so the people from Kyunkan security can be lenient. The cunning of the special people, trying to make the smuggling boats avoid the eyes and ears of the Kyunkan group is also a fantasy. As for the smuggling business run by the Huts, of course it is also under the supervision of the Kyunkan group. It can be said that those who escape by smuggling are allowed to be released by the Kyunkan group by default. And the Kyunkan group expressly cannot let go, Kong Zhang and never let it go. Ning Tao is just on the dividing line between letting go and not letting go. If you go up 1 level, you will never be able to escape. And you are 2 floors higher than Ning Tao. Not only will the Huts not help you, but they will use it to help you. His smuggling force is chasing and intercepting you. After all, the bounty on the most wanted list is quite high. At this time, Bai Yu added in a timely manner, yes, Li Yu was quite moved after learning the amount of your reward. Li Yu turned pale with shock, it's a bunch of nonsense. How could I be moved? Bai silently played the recording. Li Yu hurriedly reached out to turn off Bai's recording device, laughed and said, "Impulsive, don't take it seriously." Chapter 74. Li Yu and Bai's small theater was not brilliant, so Shan could only force a polite smile. "Oh, I know, if the leader really wants to betray me, I would have been taken away by Qunkan security." Li Yu said, "Actually, if you hadn't stayed in the safe haven of the Silver Knights, you would have been caught by the Qunkan group's net long ago. It should be said that your calmness at that time saved your life. I owe the leader 1 million Qunkan coins, and I can't evade the debt." After a pause, the Jedi apprentice said sincerely, "Thank you very much. My family doesn't need to be so polite." Li Yu was very uncomfortable with this kind of sincere dialogue, and quickly changed the subject. "Although smuggling is difficult, it is not completely impossible. What the Huts can do, others can of course, but it will take time. Although the Silver Knights have undertaken various commissions, they have never done it independently. In the smuggling business, everything has to start from scratch." Shan said sincerely again, "Thank you very much. It's almost done." "She's not a pretty girl. Don't you feel disgusted if you thank me endlessly? Can your thanks be exchanged for money?" Li Yu left full of complaints, leaving Shan alone in the cabin to continue resting. However, lying on the soft bed, Shan couldn't fall asleep no matter what. After a conversation with Li Yu, the emotions brewing in his heart were 10 times more than before. Worried about Master, confused about Nan Heli's death, unwilling to be reconciled to his own situation, all kinds of emotions are mixed together, showing numbness. The brain can hardly function as if it has been poured with coolant, so that he doesn't even seem to feel physically tired. After an unknown amount of time, the silver was slowly lifted into the air amidst a low hum of engines. Shan was lying on the bed listening to the sound of the spacecraft, and his thoughts diverged involuntarily. There was a noise when the left engine was running. Obviously the cooling performance had not been fully restored after all, and the part pierced by missile fragments needed more thorough repairs. In addition, the armor and deflector shield projection device on the left wing have not been repaired, so you must be more careful when flying. And then, with chaotic thoughts, Xiao En finally felt a sense of dizziness enveloped him, and fell into a sound sleep unknowingly. At the same time, in Shijing City, Nan Weihua finally finished the whole day's meeting and lay down on the big bed in the hotel room exhausted. The high-grade bedding on the bed did not bring the slightest warmth. When the woman thought of the experience of the day, she only felt the chills coming from the surroundings, which made her curl up involuntarily and gritted her teeth. The catastrophe experienced by the asteroid belt did not make her feel cold, because as the heir of a big family, it has long been a compulsory course in life to experience such open and dark arrows. However, when she came to Shijing, she found that everyone extremely indifferent to everything she's been through. There was no thoughtful greetings, no kind service, no even basic care. The board of directors just sent her to the hotel, and then informed her to go to the dome to attend the meeting before the meeting started. There is no contact. The attitude seems to be dealing with strangers who have never met before. They neither knew nor wanted to know what Nan Weihua experienced in the asteroid belt. Even further, Nan Weihua only felt that he could escape from the asteroid belt, which seemed to be an unexpected bad thing for the board of directors. So, is even the board of directors an enemy now? Nan Weihua murmured self-deprecatingly, wrapping the blanket in his hand a little tighter. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Nan Weihua immediately became vigilant, jumped up from the bed like a spring, and reached out to touch the small blaster used for self-defense by the bedside. The woman subconsciously swallowed once, trying to calm herself down. After a while, when the second knock on the door sounded, she suppressed her trembling voice and asked, "Who is that?" A gentle male voice came from outside the door, "Weihua, it's me." Nan Weihua was stunned for a moment. The familiar voice made her feel a burst of astonishment. Second uncle. The visitor outside the door was her second uncle and Nan Heli's younger brother, Nan Yujin. Of course, Nan Weihua was not unfamiliar with this person. When she was very young, Nan Yujin often came to visit her home. In my impression, he was a kind, gentle, sunny boy who greeted everyone with a smile. Compared with Nan Heli, who received the orthodox education of the family and was meticulous in his work, Nan Yujin was much more free, lively, and unruly. And compared to Jedi Nan Qunyu, who has accomplished nothing, Nan Yujin is brilliant and dazzling. When Nan Weihua was very young, the second uncle who often brought her various surprise gifts was even closer than her biological father. However, for some reason, as Nan Weihua grew up, Nan Yujin gradually drifted away from her family, and eventually even became inseparable. As a result, Nan Wu saw him less and less. Over the years, in Nan Wu's memory, Nan Yujin's face even became a little blurry. At this moment, hearing Nan Yujin's voice again, Nan Wu felt mixed feelings. The old memories about Nan Yujin and Nan Heli came to my mind. The taste was sour but extremely warm. Nan Yujin is Nan Wu's only surviving relative at this time. On this cold and indifferent planet, that gentle voice seemed to ignite a fire. But Nan Wu's chaotic mood only lasted for a short moment. After the death of her father, the young woman has lost the qualification to immerse herself in warmth. She forced herself to think rationally. Nan Yujin is an important figure in the family. As Nan Heli's younger brother, Nan Yujin has a decisive influence on family affairs when Nan Heli dies unexpectedly and the board of directors is in a state of affairs. In fact, after Nan Heli's death, Nan Wu immediately thought of gaining Nan Yujin's support, but Nan Yujin happened to be traveling outside the Qian galaxy at that time, so he couldn't get in touch at all. And Nan Zaihu, Nan Wu's most trusted confidant, has been implying her in various ways, Nan Yujin is not trustworthy. At that time, Nan Wu was feeling overwhelmed by his father's sudden death, and the accidental death of his younger uncle Nan Qunyu made Nan Wu deeply panic. In the desperate situation, Nan Zaihu was almost her only spiritual support. Since Nan Zaihu said that Nan Yujin was not trustworthy, she could only accept this conclusion. But now, Nan Zaihu is dead, but Nan Yujin has returned to her side. So, is this a coincidence? Is it bad luck that is about to end, or is it a sign of great prosperity? Or? Nan Wu shook his lips, using a slight tingle to make himself think more calmly. Now she doesn't have the capital to daydream, thinking too much about things will only disappoint herself. What's more, Nan Yujin's arrival is a bit strange. Come early or late, but why visit at this time? Although the voice outside the door was gentle, it was alienated. No matter what, Nan Wu couldn't equate him with the sunny person in his childhood. Chapter 75. Outside the door, Nan Yujin seemed to sense Nan Wu's worries, and instead of knocking on the door for the third time, she asked eagerly, "I heard that you encountered danger on the way, is there anything wrong?" Nan Wu couldn't help but move slightly. After arriving in Shijing, this was the first time someone asked her about the asteroid belt. Greetings that should have been taken for granted now felt precious. But she didn't want to answer the topic at this time. During this journey, there are too many secrets that are inconvenient to tell, such as her connection with the Silver Knights, such as Nan Zaihu's death. So Nan Wu chose to remain silent. Outside the door, Nan Yujin didn't bother with this topic anymore. After sighing, Wen Yan explained, "I just returned to my hometown from Munilinster. I feel very sorry about the elder brother." Nan Wu couldn't help raising the corners of his mouth, and asked with a sarcastic smile, "Is the information so closed in the Mutun people's territory?" In fact, before I arrived in Munilinster, the spaceship had an unfortunate malfunction and forced to land on a deserted planet. I didn't return to the original route until the repairs were completed. So it was a long time after I learned about the things here. Gone. Nan Wu remained silent. The second uncle's explanation was impeccable. In fact, it seemed to be the most reasonable explanation. After Nan Heli passed away unexpectedly, no matter what the relationship between Nan Yujin and him was, he should stand up in time. Losing contact is really the worst choice, which greatly affects his support rate within the family. Therefore, rationally speaking, the second uncle's explanation is convincing. Only when there is an accident will you lose contact when it should appear most. Outside the door, Nan Yujin said again, "During this time, Wu, you have really worked hard. It seems that the people in the group didn't give you the respect you deserve." Nan Wu said sarcastically, "Arranging me to stay in the most luxurious Luoda hotel in Shijing City, isn't that enough respect?" Nan Yujin sighed, "When will the heirs of the four major families be reduced to live on the ground? On the top of the sky, your father's room is still empty." Hearing this, Nan Wu was in a state of confusion. Father's room. When she was very young, Nan Heli once took her to the top of the sky, and took a short vacation in that hut surrounded by green trees. Those good times will always remain in her memory. However, at this moment, awakening that memory is only depressing. The serious but tender father is dead, and even his legacy is out of reach. Nan Wu let out a sigh of relief, quietly put away the blaster, forced himself to sort out his emotions, and walked to the door. Of course she didn't trust Nan Yujin, but at this moment, Nan Yujin's support was absolutely necessary if she wanted to regain her father's inheritance and the hut that carried her beautiful memories. No matter whether this second uncle really wanted to help her, or he had other schemes. Even if you pretend to be a snake, you have to face what you have to face. The woman opened the door and bowed to the middle-aged man in front of him who was slightly fat but still elegant. I'm sorry to keep the second uncle waiting for a long time. I was changing clothes just now. I should say sorry, and take the liberty to disturb me at this time. Please come in, second uncle. Then, Nan Wu invited him into the room and sat down in the living room. Sorry, second uncle, the conditions are poor. Nan Yujin shook her head and said, why should my family care about this? If I really want to apologize, it should be my incompetent second uncle who failed to play any role at the critical moment to apologize to you. I was not by your side when you were most difficult beside, I'm really ashamed. Nan Wu said, it's okay, second uncle, you have nothing to do. Now that I'm back, leave everything to me. I've already said hello to the group. Let's go back to Sky Dome right away. There's no need to live here. Nan Wu was startled when she heard the words, and then carefully examined Nan Heli. From the other's words and deeds, and even the changes in his micro-expressions, she could only see sincerity. For a moment, Nan Wu really wanted to let go of her guard and really hand over everything to this close relative who once took care of her. But almost at the same time, her father's cold body flashed into her mind, forcing her to cheer up again. Nan Wu said softly, thanks to second uncle for his kindness, but actually living here is not bad, Sky. I'm not at ease. Nan Yujin was surprised and said, don't worry. Where did you start? Nan Wu looked directly into Nan Yujin's eyes and asked, second uncle, do you think your father's death was an accident? Nan Yujin immediately restrained her expression, and looked directly at Nan Wu seriously. Of course it can't be an accident. There are indeed precedents for the heads of the 4 major families who died in accidents, but with the style of the eldest brother, the word accident is almost insulated from him. Nan Wu immediately asked, so second uncle, you also suspect that Kyunkan group did it? There is no need to doubt that the only one who has the ability to put a family head to death is the Kyunkan group. Nan Wu then asked with a sarcasm, then if I live in the Sky Dome now, is it considered a self-inflicted trap? Nan Yujin couldn't laugh, and he responded seriously, you should be very clear that the Kyunkan group is a big concept, and the Nan family itself is also a part of the Kyunkan group. It may be the Kyunkan group that killed Big Brother, but it must not be the whole Kyunkan group. Nan Wu remained silent. Nan Yujin leaned forward slightly, and said earnestly, Wu, you must not miss this point. If you regard the entire Kyunkan group as an enemy, then every corner of the Kyunkan galaxy is important to you. It's a net. Comparatively speaking, after all, the Vault of Heaven is jointly managed by the elder councils of the 4 major families, so it is safer than the ground. Nan Wu asked, didn't the father's death not be ordered by the Council of Elders? Nan Yujin said, then you and I can live up to now, and it is also the instruction of the Council of Elders. Worry-free, I know what you want to express, but it is not wise to quarrel with the Council of Elders at this time. After the death of elder brother, you are the helm of this family, and you should know the weight of it better than anyone else. Of course, Nan Wu knew the weight of this, it could be said to be extremely important. The so-called being at the helm does not mean that you can do what you want and call the wind and rain. In many cases, being at the helm means helplessness and compromise. Even though Nan Wu knew that the person who killed her father was within the Kyunkan group, she still could not be an enemy of Kyunkan. Even in order to successfully inherit the family property, she has to rely more on the group, showing a submissive attitude in the eyes of those elders. In fact, she came to Xiaojing on this trip just to show her obedience as a junior. It's just that she didn't expect that Xiaojing's reaction to her was more indifferent than expected. The only thing she can rely on now is the second uncle in front of her who she hasn't seen for many years. Nan Wu thought for a while, and tentatively said, second uncle, do you really think that I can take on the important task of family leader? Nan Yujin said, you must be able to, and you must be able to. My eldest brother only has a daughter like you, and this is your duty-bound mission. And you have always worked hard for this goal since you were young. I believe it will take a little getting used to. In the meantime, I will do everything I can to help you. Nan Wu worriedly said, it is simply the perfect answer. From the second uncle's words, Nan Wu couldn't hear the slightest bit of greed, and the other party seemed to never think that at this moment, if Nan Wu also died unexpectedly, then he might be the only legal heir of the Nan family. It seems that he just wants to help Nan Wu inherit the family business wholeheartedly. Having such a caring second uncle is of course what Nan Wu wished for, but is there such a good thing in the world? Even Nan Zaizu, her most trusted confidant, can betray her, so why should she believe in Nan Yujin, who is only sincere and selfless on the surface? Thinking of this, Nan Wu couldn't help laughing at himself secretly. Am I being too suspicious? If no one believed it, could it be possible that she would be able to get out of the predicament by being alone? So what if she doesn't trust her? Does she have a choice? So, after pondering for a while, Nan Wu tentatively said, I remember that second uncle doesn't like family affairs very much. Nan Yujin said, so you think so? In fact, I just don't like working with big brother.